Aloha and welcome, fellow dreamers, light guardians, shifters within this beautiful holographic matrix. Thank you so much for joining in. My name is Brendon, Mystic Spider-Man, Skull Babylon, welcoming you to another very special team broadcast presented on behalf of Paradigm Shift Central, a portal for a global team of conscious creators and leaders actively helping assist with the shift in consciousness. Thank you so much for joining in. Tonight's broadcast is going to be a free flow conscious discussion, and we're going to get right into this. We're going to be able to set this up. We're going to be able to explain to you a little bit about what to expect. We're going to be able to introduce some of the amazing members who are joining us live on air, and of course, huge special shout out and thank you to those of you who are tuned in live on any platforms. For those of you who are on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, quick reminder, if you are tuned in on anything but YouTube, then do yourself a favor and jump over to YouTube so you can join in on the chat. So for those of you on Instagram and TikTok, click the link in my bio to be able to join in. And for those of you on YouTube, please feel free to drop an 1111 in the chat just to be able to confirm that you guys can hear me okay as we get rolling into the start of this broadcast. So before we get into this, I just want to be able to gently invite the fellow members who are live on air with me to unmute their microphones and make some noise and send some love out to all the amazing people joined in. So go ahead, make some wolf howls, animal noises, magic whistles, whatever you want to do. Make it now.
Yay!
Woo! We're doing it. We're doing it. Awesome. Sweet. All right. Thank you again so much, everyone, for being here, for joining in. And we'll give a little bit of an introduction in terms of what to be able to expect. So again, the Paradigm Shift Central Project, we've been doing this project for 10 years. And this started as a club in my college way back in the day, basically with the notion of me just being along my own spiritual awakening, along my own quest of curiosity, and essentially wanting to find other people to be able to practice having conversation with, to be able to practice discussing the things that we never normally got a chance to be able to talk about, things related to consciousness, metaphysics, the mysteries of the universe, and beyond. And so what we're doing here tonight is actually a very, very cool throwback to the origins of the project. And so over the past 10 years, within the local Paradigm Shift community that I've been facilitating, Paradigm Shift London, Ontario, Canada, every Friday for so many years, up until just recently, we would come together, we would gather at a yoga studio, we would sit down on the floor, or actually it wasn't always at a yoga studio, sometimes it was at coffee shops, and when it was at the college, it was just in a classroom. But basically, the intention was to be able to bring people together, to be able to practice having conversation. And in the process of having this conversation, it gives us a chance to be mirrors for us to be able to see more of ourselves, mirrors for us to be able to share our wisdom, our insight, our inspiration, and to, again, just allow consciousness to kind of play within this very sacred, safe, and exciting space. And so throughout the project, as it's continued to evolve, here we are now today. And every Thursday, we do these team broadcasts, and we kind of float through a different variety of styles for the broadcast. And so this one, I really wanted to go back to the roots as an opportunity for us to just be able to come together and to celebrate and to enjoy each other's company. And I know that for a lot of us, you know, there's like a dopamine release that occurs when we just kind of like find ourselves in a place of other like-minded, like-hearted people talking about things that just excite us and like get our neurons firing. And there's like, yes, tell me more about how to manifest my dreams. Tell me more about the mysteries of the soul. Tell me more about all this esoteric wisdom. And so that's what we're going to be doing here tonight. We're going to be playing around with that. And again, for those of you in the YouTube chat, you're a part of the conversation too. A reminder, if you're on Facebook, TikTok, or Instagram, please feel free to jump over to the YouTube so we can keep an eye on all the comments in one place. And so as we kind of go through a little bit of what it is that we're doing here tonight, we're going to pass it to each person individually. At the start of things, just feel free to just kind of like say your name, your social media channels, and we'll make sure that the links for the people on air, their social media links, will be posted into the show notes for the broadcast within the YouTube info, and we'll also post it into the YouTube chat. So use this as an invitation to be able to connect to the other fellow amazing leading members who are here with us on air tonight. And before we jump right into this, a huge thank you to, once again, our Patreon supporters who help make this possible. If you are interested in even being able to join on air for future broadcasts, take a look at our Patreon and look into becoming a leading member, and you can get involved with the private aspects of the community and the option to be involved with these future broadcasts as well. So to start things off, I want to just be able to invite us all to just kind of like drop into a single shared frequency. So I actually want to be able to start things off just with a little bit of a quick meditation, just very quickly before we get like really diving deep into the conversation. So I just want to invite people here to just take a moment, just kind of close their eyes, straighten up their spine, relax their face, and just connect with their breath in this moment. And so gentle inhales through the nose or the mouth. Nice, soft, gentle exhales. And as you breathe here, just bringing yourself into this present moment, into this space of gratitude, into this space of community, into this space of celebration. And really just honoring this spiritual journey that we are all on, this journey of remembrance, this shift in consciousness that is happening, this beautiful picture that we are creating through the various pieces of the puzzle that we are bringing together to this table, to this round table. And so just allow yourself in this moment to even just kind of visualize all of us here together, just kind of like sitting on the floor inside of a yoga studio, chilling out. It's a beautiful time to be here, and just seeing all the beautiful smiles of all the amazing people who are here. Friends, familiar faces, soul tribe, new friends. And so we'll just take a couple more breaths here as we just drop into this space of gratitude, into this space of community, this space of celebration, this space of excitement. So just take a couple breaths here, and as you're in this space, I want you to just kind of like speak within your own heart words of gratitude to the circle, words of gratitude to the universe, words of gratitude to yourself. So just take a couple breaths here and just speak words of gratitude with your heart, with your voice, with your mind, with your soul. Beautiful. And so thank you for being here, and gently when you're ready, you can slowly open your eyes and return your awareness to the space around you. So yes, thank you for being here. Thank you for bringing your energy to this circle for us to be able to practice creating this mandala. And so again, as we are here, I remind everyone that the intention of us creating this space is essentially practice. You know, for those of you who may be watching this, I hope this excites you, and I hope you get excited about the idea that maybe you'll be joining on air for a future one, because I know just by listening, it gets us enticed to want to be able to be a part of the conversation. So for those of us who are even just in the YouTube chat, you are a part of the conversation. So to start things off, what we're going to do, I'm going to kind of like propose a topic, and then from there, we're going to kind of see where the conversation goes. We'll pass it around to people individually. You guys are welcome to jump in as and wish and as you please. And then as you jump in for the first time, you're welcome to just briefly introduce yourselves, just say your name, and then address whatever topic is in the table at that moment. And we'll just kind of see, like, the objective here is to kind of like see where like the conversations overlap, like where the branches connect, where the fractal unfolds. So to start off this conversation, I want to be able to open it up with this idea of the question of what is this spiritual journey? What is this spiritual journey of awakening? What does this really mean? And so as we kind of drop into this, it will be an opportunity to just even kind of like, you know, really crystallize some very interesting ideas while sharing some unique personal perspectives. So for me to just be able to practice answering this question first, and again, the key word being practice, for me, I would say this spiritual journey, like let's say the question is, what is this spiritual journey about? ... So let's say that's the question, and then we'll pass that around the talking circle. And for those of you in the YouTube chat, please feel free, like practice adding your answer to this question. So for me, this spiritual journey, I think obviously it involves kind of being able to define what the word spiritual even means, first and foremost. And so for me, I think like the idea of like spirituality and the spiritual journey is a lot to do with being able to understand that we are more than just our physical body. That spirituality is about being able to see things through a new set of eyes, to be able to see things with sight beyond sight, to be able to see the interconnectedness between all things, and ultimately to be able to see more of who we are within this world, within this reality. And this reality is undeniably incredibly mysterious. And I feel like the spiritual journey is something where, as you kind of go along it, there are certain things that will bring about clarity. You'll start seeing the interconnectedness, you'll start seeing the sacred geometry, and you'll be like, aha, like, oh my god, this, like, I'm seeing it's starting to make sense. But then what's interesting about the spiritual journey is that as you kind of go along with it, there are almost like more things that you get introduced to, and then you're just like, whoa, like there's so much more that I'm realizing I didn't know. And so that's like a big part of the journey, is that, you know, within the spiritual journey, I think it's kind of like moving from this place of innocence and ignorance into a place of awakening and responsibility. Because I think the spiritual journey isn't just like, hey, this is fun and this is all about me and this is like a walk through an amusement park. It's more kind of like, yo, this is like an epic quest, but this epic quest calls us into a place of responsibility. It calls us into more of who we are. And so I think the spiritual journey is essentially, and I'll just say this and I'll pass it over to the next person. I think the spiritual journey is a journey in which we get to meet more of ourselves. We get to see ourselves show up, and we get to see ourselves not just in who we are, but in our surroundings, in our environment. And the last thing I'll just say right now is there earlier on in my spiritual journey, when, you know, I was starting to get very curious, there's a very powerful thing that was said to me, and it was basically this idea that consciousness is a mirror test. It's about being able to see yourself in your surroundings. So I think within the spiritual journey, it's really about being able to mature and evolve to the point where, you know, you're seeing the layers of things, you're seeing the interconnectedness of things, and ultimately you're seeing yourself in things. Call it this Buddha nature, call it what you will. So I think this journey, spiritual journey, is like a journey back to the heart, back to this remembrance. Like, that's a key word. It's not just always learning something new. A lot of it is like remembering what's inside of us, the soul, this wisdom, and connecting to this like universal knowledge. So yeah, that's what I'll share for now. Obviously there's more to it. And to start off the conversation, to pass it from here, we're actually going to pass it over to Campton. And Campton, please feel free to introduce yourself, and then you can kind of practice answering that. And then we'll kind of, the next person, you guys can literally just raise your hand on camera, or you can use the raise hand option within Zoom to be able to prompt me to be able to pass the microphone next to you. So with that said, Campton, we're going to pass it over to you, and thank you so much, dude, for being here. Just a quick introduction. Campton is another fellow awesome conscious creator, so after this, be sure to check out more of his content on TikTok and elsewhere. So Campton, thanks for being here, and go right ahead, dude.
Well, thanks, Brendon, for that wonderful introduction and poetic piece that you just gave us. This is the first talking stick I think I've ever received. I don't know. I'll introduce myself, say hello to my fellow people who are here with me. Didn't really get a chance to say that. So, my name is Campton. I go by @Camptonian on TikTok. I make spiritual enlightenment videos, if you can call them that. I just want to inspire spirituality in other people because I come from a background of, you know, autism and social issues and bullying in school and psychosis, rage, and things like this that really kind of were my spiritual struggle, you know. And as for the talking point, I guess that plays into it. My spiritual journey is really all I have to go on for this perspective. So I'll just give a few words, maybe nutshell it up, and then I hope that's talking stick worthy. So yeah, you know, difficult background, coming from, you know, a challenging parental situation. You know, the energy wasn't always great. There was a lot of early trauma, verbal abuse, things like this, just shocking scenarios. And it gave me night terrors, I remember, as a child. And um, it was just an awful experience. And, you know, I have autism. I was diagnosed early on with dyslexia and later autism, you know, as the social issues and you know, intellectual intrigue, you know, was imbalanced and whatnot. So a lot of issues in school. I was always in, you know, a learning disability school. Always felt like an outsider, even within the school of what, you know, classically people would call maybe people who are special or different or learn a certain way. And yeah, so I never really had a tight social experience in the public with other human beings, so I never really got that early on. So this kind of shapes me into, you know, coming into being a teenager, what with the personality changes and whatnot, everything was happening to everyone else around me, but I didn't have any interest or even connectedness to anything at all. I didn't know that I had a purpose, and that's what really got me. It's kind of shocking to me that somebody so young, that the reason that they would want to die is they don't feel like they have a purpose or know what this is all about or whatnot. You just kind of see people going about it as if, oh, it's not shocking that we're human beings on this planet, that we're flying around this incredible gas giant. I just think that's fascinating. That's what I was interested in, not the meanderings and drama early on. So that was just my initial spiritual perspective, which I never really considered it to be that way. I don't know how people define spirituality. I know that Brendon, you brought that up. It's like, what even is the spiritual journey? What are we doing here? Why? And that fascinates me as well. So, if I had to just quickly, I guess, answer that question, I would say it's getting in touch with your emotions, because this is what saved me. Getting in touch with your emotions, accepting and understanding them, that the difficult ones, they're coming. You're in for the deal, but on the other side of that, the chemistry, the alchemical reaction of an experiment is what you need to inform your next experiment. So if we just continually learn how to accept the bigger consequences of that, I think we set ourselves free spiritually. So is it chemicals? Is it particles? Is it neurons and synapses? Or is there an underlying, infinite awareness that pours itself into all of creation? Who is to say? But I guess that's just my answer for you. I don't know if I am going to hand back that stick to you, Brendon, or
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you. Yeah, perfect. Awesome, Campton. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. And again, just thank you for sharing, and thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for your honesty, and thank you for your wisdom as well. And again, for everybody here, I just want to, because I didn't mention this at the beginning, again, part of the intention with us creating this space is to be able to practice holding space, for each other. That's a very, very powerful idea. And a lot of that just comes through the ability to be able to be present and to listen. So again, I appreciate everybody here, even those of you in the YouTube chat, those of you on any platform, those of you listening to this in the future as well. Like, thank you for practicing listening. Even like quantumly, if you're listening 5 years from now, you're still like energetically connecting to the present moment. And that's very powerful. It means a lot to be heard, to be seen. So Campton, thank you. We're going to pass the talking stick to the next person. And then again, from here, as we kind of go through this, again, the conversation will just kind of evolve. I do want to be able to set a bit of a container. So from here, we'll say that maybe, like a little bit under 2 hours from now, I think I mentioned this at the beginning, we'll get close to wrapping up this broadcast just to be able to keep things concise. And then, hey, we'll come back another week and we'll do this again, because there's always more to talk about. So with that said, we'll pass it over to the next person. So just give me a quick little like hand in the air. So we'll pass it over to Rachel next. And then we'll pass it over to Katie, and then from there we'll just kind of keep the conversation flowing. So Rachel, when you're ready, I'm going to pass it over to you. Rachel's one of our newer leading members. So Rachel, passing it over to you. Go right ahead, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit, what is this spiritual journey all about? And let me
First
just,
of all,
yeah,
I'd
you're
like
good.
to
Okay.
say thank you so much, Brendon. This has been such an amazing week for me discovering this group. And I literally just discovered this group on Monday and just joined immediately. It just felt right. It was the right thing to do. So here I am. I am currently a second year graduate student studying acupuncture and Oriental medicine, which actually ties into my spiritual journey in a lot of ways. Um, I grew up in a Christian household that was very much centered on, the one God, and that's kind of all there is. And I never really resonated with that, in that, oh, I need to pray to this God and it's going to fix, like, he'll be able to help me through everything, fix all my issues. Just not the case for me. Um, I've always kind of had this idea that all religions and beliefs are valid, which I think is a big part of my spiritual journey too. Just kind of that, just being open to all the possibilities that are out there and not closing yourself off to really anything, just letting things come into you. And, if it resonates with you, take it in. And if it doesn't, then leave it aside. And maybe you'll come back around to it later at some point and it will resonate with you. So, that's a big part of what I've gone through as I've come to where I am now. Also, my schooling, I've learned a lot about yin yang theory in the last 2 years. And that has made a huge impact for me too, realizing that you kind of have to be okay with the gray area. It's not all black and white. And I guess that's all I have to say for now.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. That's a wonderful introduction. And again, thank you for just sharing in your excitement. Because again, I know it's funny, you know, I think one of the really cool things about doing these broadcasts, and I'll just say this real quick and we'll pass it over to Katie next, is that I know, and this is part of the reason why we do these broadcasts, I know for a lot of people, they see a lot of us as different creators here and there, and some of us, you know, this is going to be our first time getting to meet new creators. But I know for a lot of people who are watching this, it really means something within their heart to like see us coming together as a team. So I really just want to be able to, again, just kind of like express my gratitude to all of us, because again, I know for the community as a collective, they're just like, yo, this is really cool, this is what we need, superheroes coming together and kicking ass. And I'm literally just saying that because like shout out to Jeff, one of the new listeners who's tuned in on YouTube, who literally, this is what prompted me to say this, they were literally just saying like, yo, like I've been following Campton and myself, Mystic Spider-Man, like separately, but I had no ideas that like you guys kind of knew each other. So now it's like these worlds colliding and stuff like that. So it's very cool. So welcome, Jeff, and welcome everybody. Again, if you're a new listener here, drop a 333 in the comments to be able to let us know. And a reminder, if you're tuned in on TikTok or Instagram, click the link in my bio to be able to watch on YouTube. And then for those of you on Facebook, you can jump over to YouTube as well. So with that said, we'll pass it over to Katie. Katie, when you are ready, go right ahead, and welcome back once again. So Katie, go ahead.
Hi there. Thanks for having me. You can find me on Instagram if you want at Medicine Woman Elixir. I consider myself a healer in healing myself and also offering healing to others through Reiki and different energy work. So, on the topic of what is the spiritual journey, um, I really resonate Campton with lots of kind of mental health issues and potentially like undiagnosed autism on my end. Was never something that like I was like saw a doctor about or anything, but definitely have gone through the struggles of some of the human experience. And something that I wanted to mention that kind of came up for me before you had even mentioned like finding purpose is that um, an amazing healer that I know that's in my region. I had a session with him. He's actually a two spirit, which I feel so grateful to be in communication with someone with that kind of potency. Um, as we all have our potency, but yeah, in that way, that two spirit way. Um, they told me that in their practice, they regard the chakra system as being a series of um, energy portals related to the different organs in our body, and that they actually get strengthened throughout our lifetime and at different periods in our development, they actually come into what would be considered like a full activation, just based on like our chronological aging. And that at around mid 20s is whenever we could consider the throat chakra to be fully activated and fully like turned on. And so I sort of think that it's a symptom of like Western culture kind of pushing young children literally younger people to like decide their life path so early. I started college when I was 17, and I really didn't have very clear direction at that point, but I started college because part of my journey is I am like a ridiculously like athletic person, and I was offered a full scholarship to go to university to run cross country and track. So I was little 17-year-old self me just going to university. That was a great big adventure. Here I am, 23, not necessarily pursuing what I studied in college um, on a professional level. I studied cinema production. So I make like videos here and there for friends. Like I'm working on a yoga series for a friend of mine. And I make cooking videos because I'm super passionate about food and healthy eating. So you can check out my YouTube if you want. But the point of all of that is just to say that I don't think that we're necessarily fully developed until like our like 30 maybe, and like I don't think our chakras are totally like activated and in their fullest being until like 30. So um yeah, I think it's just part of like the world problems are that like Western culture has put so much emphasis on young children figuring out what they want to do at too young of an age. And so how that relates to me to a spiritual journey is I am always reminding myself that consciousness just wants to experience as much as it can, so it's constantly setting up like any scenario possible. And to some degree I think we choose the timelines that we live in based on um what frequencies we tune ourselves to, and that's a little bit of what we can consciously do, and that's also a little bit of our external realities, like what's going on around us and how and I don't want to pretend like we can always change a lot of that, and I think that we can over time. I think it's something that we can take steps over prolonged periods of time to change our external realities if it's something that we really want to change. But especially tuning our inner frequencies can help us kind of shift timelines, because I've personally experienced some pretty intense realities, and this is just the last point I'll make. I've personally experienced some really intense realities that I chose to not partake in, but since choosing to not partake in them, I've had very intense emotional experiences where I've had the awareness that the emotions that would have come from those specific realities were retracting themselves back into my nervous system. Um, so that's all I want to say right now. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to continue being part of this flow.
Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you, Katie, so much. And Katie, when you get a second, can you just type your Facebook professional page into the chat on here? That way, so we can just copy it over. That way, so we can just link people in if people, and same with your YouTube channel as well, if you'd like to be able to share that, because I'm sure people are like, oh yeah, I'll check out her YouTube. Awesome. So beautiful. Awesome. Sweet. All right. Thank you, Katie. And again, you know, we'll just kind of keep passing the talking stick kind of going. But if you guys do have anything where it's like, if someone says something before you and you kind of want to like practice responding to it, please, by all means. And again, I just really appreciate that not only in this space is it a chance for us to just be able to like, you know, share our ideas, but again, it's literally sharing ourselves. And I think that's like the thing that is really exciting about this journey. Is this idea that, you know, this is about us developing a relationship as a team. This is about us literally getting to know each other. We're not just posts on Instagram. We're not just, you know, texts on Facebook or something like that. There's a heart, there's a soul behind each and every single one of us. And part of the intention is that through this broadcast, you know, we want you, the person watching this, all of us, to develop this relationship. And it's through the deepening of our relationships that we create the, you know, the sustenance that is really going to help us go far. Like that for me, as community, has always been something really important. You know, like how are we nurturing the roots? And one of the ways that we do that is just by being able to, again, share in the space, get to know each other, get to know not only your story, her story, my story, their story, but to be able to see like where our stories overlap and to be able to see each other in our stories. Because I know even for just people here watching this, they're like, whoa, like I've gone through something similar. And then just to literally hear that, like it sparks something within our heart. Because again, I think it nurtures us kind of in that space where it's just like, oh, like I am not alone. And I think, just briefly kind of reflecting on what is this spiritual journey about, I think a lot of this spiritual journey is about being able to find our kin, find our soul tribe, find our family, find our team. Like that for me, again, like going back to what I was talking about at the beginning of the broadcast, like that was literally, you know, my mission when I started this project 10 years ago. It was like I was becoming aware of synchronicity being a thing. And then I was like, wait a second, like I understand how synchronicity works, and I understand that if I create like a gravitational, like a portal, it has like a gravitational field to it, and the right people will find it at the right time. And so again, like literally for everyone here, you're echoing that through the digital space. We've created this portal, you resonate with it, you are finding it, and in the process of doing this, this is you literally like finding us, the soul tribe, the team, call it what you will. So shout out to the team, and let's keep moving along here. And again, we'll just kind of keep flowing from one topic to the next. So put a hand up if you wanted to go next. I think Kris is going to go next, and then Astra, we'll pass it over to you next, if that's cool. Perfect. All right, Kris, passing it over to you. Kris is one of our leading members. Kris has been involved with the project for quite some time. It's always a pleasure to be able to have him here. So Kris, passing it over to you, and when you're ready, dude, go right ahead.
Yeah, so I wanted to start by just saying thank you so much, Brendon, for holding this space, like, as you like, continue to do, like this container for allowing, like this open and free expression is always just like, so beautiful, and it's always something that I'm truly so grateful for. And it's something that I always bring myself back to, that gratitude of like, it's kind of like sometimes I can really fall into that mindset of just like, wanting to do everything on my own, and like, not wanting to kind of reach out to all of the support, like, and all of the, just kind of tapping into all of the abundance, like, all around me and stuff. And I think that like, like it's just kind of like this process that we go through, it's this like expansion and contraction where we're like expanding, and like, and reaching out to people. And then we sometimes go back into our shell, and, we just want to be alone, like with ourselves. But, both of those times are definitely valid and stuff. And I know that I've already started to ramble and, go on my train of thoughts, but, I'm starting to realize so much more that like, it's kind of just bringing myself back to center, and being able to kind of like, realize that like I'm like entering into a lot of these different connections when I speak a lot of the time. But like that's why I like, it's helpful for me a lot of the times to like, I've been like, over the course of this broadcast so far, I've just been writing down like all of these like, different connection points and stuff like that. And so anyway, like, to I don't even know if I introduced myself, by the way, if I started off with that. So my name's Kris, by the way, and I'm from Freehold, New Jersey. And yeah, like, so just to keep myself kind of on track, because like I'm just so excited, as you can tell, and I just like, and like, just so overjoyed to always be in this space and to be like able to share and to speak with you all. But so like, what to go into, what's this spiritual journey all about, like, and to connect it to a lot of the points that everyone in this like whole video has been talking about. It's to find like, more people like this, and to be able to realize too that, you know that this soul tribe, like, is kind of reflective of what, it is that I desire to create as well. Like, I'm starting to realize that is like, to create spaces like this, for to create spaces like this, like, myself, to be able to hold space for people in this way. Because like I'm starting to realize that like, like, kind of this space of communication is something that is really that I really always value so much, because of all the things that Brendon was talking about how like, we find these relations to other people and we're like, oh, I get you, and I totally like understand what you're talking about. So to share a couple of those right now, like, to go along with like what Katie was saying, just with like, mentioning the throat chakra and talking about that, like, to notice the connection of that, like, I'm wearing blue right now, that like, Campton's wearing blue, that Rachel like has blue hair, you know what I mean? Like, that's just one of the connections that you can make, like, and that all of these are like available all the time. And I'm starting to realize that like, it's not a bad thing that I make those connections, but it's just being able to like find channels to share that information and stuff. So, it's like this web of stuff that like, you know, I come across, it's really like sometimes my greatest like strength instead of it being like my weakness. Like it's really just a matter of being able to see it as that and see myself from that perspective. So like that's just I don't mean to hold the talking stick for too long, but I just wanted to go into, you know, the what the spiritual journey is all about. And I think that, you know, going along with what some of what Brendon was saying with you know, just kind of what we identify with is something that I've really been focusing on like a lot recently. Like, you know, it's that in each moment we can choose what it is that we are truly like identifying with. Like, am I identifying with this body? Like, am I this body? Or am I truly like, you know, like the spirit that is like, you know, encased within this body? And it's like, you know, it comes down to these levels of, you know, just kind of awareness. And, you know, yeah, like what we're identifying with. Like, am I identifying with this matter, this like, you know, crude matter? And like, you know, it's funny because like Brendon, I know that he really loves Star Wars and everything, and he just he posted on like you know, May the 4th be with you, that that wonderful post quote by Yoda. You know, it's just like that we are not this, you know, crude matter, but you know, it's like that we are this luminous spirit, you know, luminous beings are we, you know, that truly like that is our true nature. So, you know, that the spiritual journey, you know, in a nutshell is like, you know, being able to, you know, shed these layers of identification with like that which we are not, but at the same time, like, you know, finding and re-identifying with that which we are, which is like, you know, all that is. Like, you know, it's being able to see God within everything, being able to see ourself like, you know, within all of these things. So it's really being able to expand our awareness in all senses of the word. Like, it's being able to expand the seat of our awareness and where we're viewing things from, you know. So it's like not just viewing it from little old me sitting here, but it's like, no, it's like me, the me that I see within you, you know, the me that I see within, you know, the cosmos. It's being able to kind of zoom out and have that cosmic perspective and being able to, you know, embody that awareness. You know, that is what I truly feel like, you know, the spiritual journey it's all about. It's not just like, you know, about learning more things, but it's about, you know, embodying that awareness and being that light, you know, being that light of wisdom and, you know, of truth and of love. So yeah, that's kind of what I have to share right now.
Beautiful. Awesome. Kris, thank you so much, dude. And like it means a lot just to be able to like have you here and see you smiling, because again, like I even know like right now, like as we're doing this, as we're holding space for this broadcast, again, like we are literally leveling up just by being here. And I know, again, for a lot of us, like again, part of the reason why I created this space is like I said this before, but it's practice. It's practicing talking. And I think what's powerful about this concept of practice is that, you know, when we understand that it's practice, we almost allow this part of our spirit to show up and become very playful, you know, instead of thinking it's just like, oh, like, what do you mean there's 300 people like tuned in right now? Like, I'm gonna embarrass myself. I can't do this. Like, I've got my ego will get hurt and things like that. But we're just like, it's okay, man. Like, it's just practice, right? Then suddenly we just kind of like allow ourselves to just kind of like step into this space where we just naturally just like this creativity just kind of like moves through us. So again, the activation of the throat chakra absolutely is a huge part of the spiritual journey that I think a lot of us are continuing to now, like as we've kind of like moved from 2012 into 2020, are really stepping into. Again, you know, like look at what's happening on social media. Like again, like people like Campton, people like Rachel, people like myself, everyone here, like we're making content literally just because we feel called to speak our truth, because we know that like, hey, like this has been something that's been important to my journey. It's helped me and everything. And I think deeply within our heart, we want to help other people. Like that is within our very nature to help other people. So, I mean, very quickly, I'll just say this and I'll pass it over to Astra. I think this spiritual journey is about, you know, kind of like figuring out what works for us and then sharing that wisdom so that others continue to be able to like grow and learn in their own ways. And I think, again, you know, this spiritual journey is kind of like what Kris was saying. It's about being able to like understand like who you are, but like in the bigger sense of who you are. But then it's also about being able to understand like who you are in the crystallized sense of who you are. And again, like when you just going back to with Kris and everything like that, I think what's really cool is that we actually literally get to see ourselves when we show up for a space like this. You know, we get to kind of like sit back and we just be like, whoa, like did I just like talk for like 5 minutes straight? Like did I just like pour out some really powerful heart wisdom, be like, oh, like I did, like that's maybe that's the first time I've ever done that. And just as a quick little story that's really cute, I've done like a lot of filming and everything over the years, and one of the things that I always found useful, especially when I was filming at in California at the Lucidity Festival, and for those of you who haven't checked this out, YouTube search Journey to Lucidity. That's one of the movies I've watched, and if you've seen Journey to Lucidity, drop a 777 in the chat and tell everyone about how awesome it is. But when I was filming these movies, okay, the Astra's gonna be back in a second, so I'll just tell this quick little story, not a problem. When I was filming these movies, basically, when I would like interview people, I would like have the camera in front of them and stuff like that, and you could almost kind of tell that as soon as the camera's in front of them, something happens inside of them, and they either get really excited or they get really nervous. And you could tell that if there were people that were just kind of like, be like, like I don't know, man, like because when you're filming and stuff like that, there's a lot of trust involved. Like they don't know how I'm gonna edit it, they don't know where it's gonna go and things like that. Obviously, like I know my intentions, like really, honest and everything like that. But one of the things I would say, just to be able to help kind of like relax them, I would just be like it's okay, like this is just test footage. Like this is just test footage. Like don't even worry about it. We'll just film it, and if it's good, fine, and if not, we'll delete it or something like that. And then once you kind of like set it up in that way, they're just like, all right, yeah, whatever, just do with it. And then they're just like, how was that? And be like, perfect. Like we don't even need to do a take two. It was just test footage, right? And then eventually that became like a running joke where I'd be like, just like really deep into filming a scene and stuff like that. And then like my friends who are familiar with turning to me would be like, oh, that was some good test footage there, Brendon, and be like, yeah, I know. So but anyway, so again, this is, and even right now, it's just like, this is kind of like, a paradigm shifting idea, but like right now, this human experience, is this just test footage? Is this just practice? Like, what are we practicing for? And this is where it gets really deep, right? And I'm sure, I'd love to even just kind of like hear other thoughts on this, where again, you start getting into these philosophies that this life is literally like preparation for quote unquote death, or like the expansion of the soul beyond this dimension, so like we literally kind of like evolve our soul to the best of our ability, and then to be able to like bring that beyond this again. And that's where it gets very, very mysterious. So going back to that concept of what is the spiritual journey, I would say the spiritual journey is to be able to leave this party and to kind of like bring with us like as much as we can into the collective. It's like when the game ends, it's like it kind of like uploads all your experience points, and that like goes into the collective, or it goes into the cloud, or maybe it goes into your next incarnation or something like that. So again, that's where not to get too far into this, but when you start looking at life as like metaphors where it's like a video game and stuff like that, it's like we're here to level up. And once you kind of actually kind of like embody that, you're like, oh, now I get it. Because then you start understanding that, much like a video game, we're not just here to stay in level 1. Like we're here to get to level 99. And if that's the case, the universe is going to give us challenges, but those challenges are only there to be able to help level us up. Kris, you want to say something real quick, and then we'll pass it over to Astra. Go for it.
I don't mean
not
to
a problem.
jump in like before.
Please do.
I just wanted to connect, because maybe it could be something we could connect with, like like kind of after. I was like thinking about, you like brought up like how it's like just like this idea of like this preparation for death. And I was just thinking about the ancient Egyptians and like a lot of these ancient cultures, like like that's like literally what like their entire religions were based off of, was just kind of like the afterlife and stuff. And when you look at that in perspective to like like religions now that are just like all about life, it's just like almost like death is like the taboo subjects. It's like really being able to kind of like remove that fear of death is like something that's like really kind of like important, I feel like, in our society and stuff like that, in order to
Absolutely. I agree absolutely. So yeah, definitely we'll have to we'll see, we'll kind of like wrap that into further parts of the conversation. So Kris, I appreciate that. All right, so with that said, Astra, you're good to go. We'll pass it over to you. And again, thank you everyone again so much for being here. And with that said, we'll just keep the conversation flowing. And Astra, yeah, you're good to go. Okay, perfect. All right, okay, passing over to Astra. And Astra, one of our newer leading members. So Astra, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what the spiritual journey is all about.
Hi guys, it's so great to be here. I feel so grateful for the opportunity, because this is actually like my number one biggest fear, is talking in front of people. So I'm so grateful for the opportunity to just, face something head on like that. Little bit of background about me. I was raised in very traumatic situations, sexual trauma, physical trauma, emotional trauma, spiritual trauma for most of my life. And it led me to this really dark place with substances and, you know, just trying to fill this void and trying to heal something in a way that wasn't healthy at all. Um, so 2015, I started hanging out with, you know, some festival people, and I found that I was reading all the books, I was doing the yoga, I was meditating, I was doing all the things, I was eating right, and I still wasn't feeling better. That was in 2015. I had a miscarriage in late 2015, and it just kind of set me on this really rocky path. And I kept reading and I kept meditating and I kept making gratitude lists, but I wasn't feeling grateful. And and then I finally figured it out that I was trying to accomplish all this stuff, and I was doing the yoga and I was doing all these things, but I wasn't doing it for me. I wasn't putting 100% in it. I was doing it to be accepted by people because I thought that that's what I was supposed to do. To be a good person, you got to do all these things, even if you don't feel it, even if your heart's not in it. So I just completely stopped for a while, and I took a step back and I just lived my life. And then actually, I don't know what it was. I think it might have been like right before the quarantine. I just felt like this great call. Like I had hated and resented my mother for years because of something I felt that she did to me. Because looking from it from my perspective, she did me wrong, but I didn't realize that I wasn't looking at her as a person that was struggling with decisions and struggling to know what to do and doing the best that she could by herself. I was looking at her like, my mom, you're supposed to have all the answers. So like that really hit me like right before quarantine, like, oh wow, like there was no reason for us to have all this hate if we would have sat down and had this conversation years ago. Like we had a really long conversation about things that I never thought we would talk about. And it just kind of spiraled into this place of, I'm doing the gratitude journals now, but I'm feeling grateful, and I'm doing the meditation now, and it's helping me. It's not a show, and I'm doing all these things and I'm feeling better, and it feels organic and genuine, and it feels like actual healing at this point instead of putting on a Broadway show, I guess you could say. um, so for spirituality for me, like I'm a newbie, I'm a little baby, I don't have the XP points to be talking about this, but for me it's being of service to other people and being of service to yourself, healing past traumas that you've dealt with, healing pain passed down from your families. You know, um, my fiance, he suffers with not being able to show emotions because he was always told man up. So when our child was born, you know, we cut off all contact with people who would ever say those words to my kid because I don't want my son to be affected like that, you know. So being of service, healing, you know, familial damage, and just trying to be loving awareness and trying to do everything from your heart center. And you know, I don't really think that ego is a bad thing. I don't think that we need to destroy our ego, but I feel like we need to keep it in check. We need to hold it accountable a lot. But to me, right now, trying to stay grounded, that's what my spiritual, you know, what's spiritual to me. I'm sure as time progresses that that will progress and evolve. You know, every day it evolves. It's never the same. You never want to stay stagnant in how you define your spirituality, because as you're growing every day, your definition should grow and it should change. But to me, that's what spirituality is for me personally in my life. Um, but I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be here. I never thought that I would do something like this. I'm actually shaking right now, but I thank you all for letting me be here.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you, Astra, so much. And yes, again, it just means so much for everyone just to be able to like authentically share themselves in this space. And Astra, like huge round of applause for you for again just being able to take that step. And again, you know, it's just like you kind of like do that, but I feel like when we kind of like allow ourselves to kind of like move through a bit of that blockage, it's almost like kind of like we're like brushing off like cobwebs and dust that is kind of like built up. And then as we do that, there's just like this like spirit inside of us that's just like, yes, this is what I'm here to do, dance, express myself, to shine. And again, maybe that's part of the spiritual journey as well, you know, as much as it is, you know, like transmuting the darkness and working through the hard things. I think what we want to do, you know, like let's kind of like imagine this, like if we could like, you know, do the things that we want to do all the time, if we could choose that, relatively speaking, what would that look like? And I think a lot of that would look like, you know, it would look like creating and dancing and making art and hugging and loving and talking and listening and going on adventures and like making friends with animals and seeing synchronicities and everything like that, and just like being open to kind of like the mystery of the unknown, and just kind of like leveling up ourselves and tasting delicious fruit and all of these beautiful things that life has to offer. And again, I think, you know, as we just kind of like move into the next part of the conversation here, again, I think whatever this reality is, it is something that is inevitably a very special thing. It is a very special gift in its own way. And I've kind of talked about this before, where, you know, I almost imagine that there's like literally like some souls that are kind of like outside of this dimension. It's almost like they're like looking in on us right now. And I feel like some of them would probably be looking in on us right now, and they would basically be like envious. Like they would be like, ooh, like I wish I could be on Earth right now. Like I wish I could be having this human experience. And then someone would come up to them and be like, really? Like even the hard times, like you would want that? And then their response would be like, yes, because that's what makes the good times even sweeter. Knowing kind of like from that perspective that like you don't come into this just for the hard times and everything like that. It's like, it's the mix of both. It's the dyadic cyclone. It's the yin and the yang. So as we kind of move through this discussion and this conversation, I want to be able to just kind of like move things again also towards the point of just like practicality. And I want to be able to invite each of us to share a little bit about, you know, what has been the most helpful for us along our spiritual journey up to this point. What little things, what pieces of knowledge, what little gems have like really helped us get to where we are today, understanding that we are ultimately still growing. So I mean, again, this could be like just like an idea, a perspective, a practice in its own way. And so for me, just to be able to answer this real quick off the top of my head, off the top of my heart. Does my heart have a top? I'm not sure if that phrase works. From the middle of my heart, from the depths of my infinite heart. If I were to just kind of like think here, like what has been like the most helpful for me, I think it's been, I mean, there's so many things, right? I'll just say this. I'll just keep it simple. For me, a big thing has been the practice of mindfulness, the practice of meditation, the practice of being able to bring myself into the present moment, the practice of being able to connect with my breath. And honestly, I feel like regardless of like any of the other tips that there are, I feel like ultimately every single one will almost come back to the breath, because every single one is anchored in the breath, because every single moment exists with the breath. And there's one piece of information, and I'll just say this, and then maybe we'll pass over to Campton, I guess, if that's cool, since we haven't heard from him in a little while. And then from there, it'll just be like, again, like anybody just kind of like jump in as we go. One of my friends said this to me, and this was actually my friend Jesse, who's in the Journey to Lucidity movie. For those of you who've seen the movie, I keep hyping this movie up. You guys got to watch it. He's like the one who I do like the sword play with, and he's kind of got this warrior archetype. And there's one of the things he said to me. He basically said, the breath will guide us through anything. The breath will guide us through anything. So on your worst day, on your best day, but even in like those moments where it's like really difficult, really uncomfortable, I think it's always important to be able to remind ourselves that if we can bring our awareness to our breath, the breath will guide us through that. And I think of like, you know, experiences of even, you know, obviously I'm not talking from experience, at least within this lifetime, would be, you know, women in labor, right? Like, it's like, how do you get through that? It's like the one thing that you can bring it back to is like this breath, and the breath guides you through that. And even with psychedelic experience, or even just in moments of like heartbreak, that's like a thing I can obviously speak of, and I'm sure many of us can, where, you know, moments where like I've gone through like relationships and heartbreak, and I would physically be feeling it in my body, like in addition to like physical exercise helping me. It was about being able to just like consciously breathe. And then when you breathe, you like move the energy, because again, when we're not breathing, it's like the energy like coagulates, it gets stuck. And then that's where we feel the discomfort. But again, I'll just say this real quick, where, you know, parallel to this, within the context of what I'm talking about, you know, the discomfort, the dis-ease that we feel is in itself a teacher, is in itself a messenger. And so sometimes when we're in that place of, just using the example of heartbreak, like how many people have had that heartbreak feeling and like their body literally gets like tense, like their shoulders hurt, they're just like, and they're just feeling it, it's physically in their body. But then even then, that tenseness, from a higher level of awareness, what if we were to start seeing that, and that's like actually like a message that's just saying like, you need to breathe right now. You need to take some deep breaths right now, because if you take some deep breaths, you'll notice that it will shift out of that feeling. Like, or I mean, if you want to stay like that, that's a choice, right? But to understand that like those feelings of discomfort is almost always kind of inviting us into the breath, I think that's actually like a very powerful way to look at it, where it's like every single experience is actually like inviting us to be able to be like present with the breath. And like, what is the breath, right? This breath is like connecting to this like cosmic life force. Like, I don't think the breath is just oxygen within us. Like, I think we're like literally like this is a cool visual. When we breathe, it's like we're breathing in through the top of our crown, you know, it's like we're breathing in from the roots. So it's like there's different ways to breathe. Yeah, you can just breathe with your mouth and with your nose and with your lungs, but what happens when you start breathing with your entire body? What happens when you start breathing with like your energy field? Like, is this a thing? Like, and I think it is. So let's kind of, if anything, if we can, you know, Campton, even feel free to just kind of like bounce off that, you know, let's talk a little bit about breath, mindfulness, meditation, and then add in your own thoughts of, you know, what else is, you know, things that have helped you along the spiritual journey. So Campton, is that cool with you? Pass it over to you.
Yeah,
Perfect.
that's fine.
All right, go for it, man.
Okay, so I'll build off of the breath, and incorporate a bit of my own experience. So what I've realized is, yeah, like you said, the breath's central to everything. It sort of anchors the present moment. It's always there. You sort of got to do it. And it has to do with essentially, you know, hormonal balance, the chemicals inside of you. And this is what I'm interested in, the biology of the human body. That was my spiritual reality. You know, we got our shamans, our witches, you know, people who find the love in Christianity, people who have, you know, a really kind of heart opening moment in their life, you know, wherever your spirituality comes from. Mine was science. Mine was understanding the brain, the breath, how the synapses form. And that's how I'm able to, you know, throw a baseball, is because I've repeated this action and there's thin wires inside of my arm that remember how to do that. And that just fascinated me. So I kind of sprawled out into other parts of the brain. Like, is my personality just a web of structures in my mind, but still also valid spiritually? That's what I had to understand, that, you know, it's not existentialism. If I'm contemplating the science of my form, it's just understanding my form. The universe is meant to learn, and clearly all of our achievements as humans are progressive and evolutionary, including the internet, the ability to pass on information, ancient wisdom, and, you know, even creative arts. You know, that there's no limit to what a human can do to place their brain on, to intend to create. And I'll get back to the breath, actually. So the chemicals fascinated me, with mood and the breath and rooting yourself in the present moment, because you really can witness a chemical reaction inside of yourself and then breathe through that, and a different situation happens, rather than just feeling that emotion and then acting into it because ego, because I got to do this now. You know, I got to prove this thought form in my head is real by acting on it immediately, instead of just being the objective observer that can formulate a personality and with their will. So the breath is essential to master, and I think it's at the core of many disciplines. It allows you to concentrate, and it fuels the body. So I don't know, that's my nutshell. I don't know, I'll hand it back to you, Brendon. Or
Well, I'll just kind of ask you, man. I mean, like,
Sure.
what? Yeah, because I'm curious again, and this is a chance just for us to learn from each other. Within your studies, like, have there been like particular practices that you've come across, like within like even like the ancient esoteric spiritual practices where like breath was like the pivotal element to it. Because again, you know, like even for those of us who are familiar to this, you know, like yeah, like there's a lot of different ways to breathe. And I think what's actually interesting, this is where I'm fascinated by, and again, it almost goes back to like this video game metaphor where it's like through different breath techniques we can actually kind of like activate latent aspects of our being, so to speak. So it's like, oh, if you do this breath, like this will help kind of like activate like this type of like energy field, or if you do this breath, this will help you relax. And you know, there's like fire breath, pranayama, there's like the breath that's going to like activate like the pingala channel, like the kundalini channels and everything like that. Yeah, if you just want to even just drop like a little bit of esoteric, you know, insights relative to the breath, please feel free.
Sure. So I guess that would tie into Kundalini, Chi, Prana, the internal bioelectricity and blood and whatnot. It's all kind of synonymous, but have different focal points. You know, that the Chinese might have figured something out over here, and then we got the American sciences. We got this little nugget figured out, and it's up to us to connect these dots for our own experience. So yeah, definitely Kundalini. I mean, I'm fascinated by this. I have personal experience with this. Emotional openings, like you said, you know, perceptions of this realm that dramatically shift the way that we form our psychology and personality and belief structure, and the way that we interact with others, our morals, our principles. All these things are transformed in the light of awareness, the light of truth. And you know, for me, a system that I resonate with is the Kundalini system, because the spine is your thickest channel, lightning rod for consciousness. It spreads throughout the body. That's the nervous system. And what charges the nervous system? That's the breath, you know, and wherever you place your intent or your light of awareness in the body, the breath and the light surcharge that area. You know, that's how we can feel wonderful feelings of relaxation. When we focus on the diaphragm, we're stimulating that area, you know. And these systems and awarenesses that we have, you know, we know that taking a deep breath feels good. We don't have to be a scientist to know that, but you know, it helps knowing the underlying systems that fuel that, I guess. And I resonate with Kundalini. So is that kind of an answer you were looking for on the...
Yeah, I mean, obviously you can get a bit deeper, but you know, maybe we'll just kind of set that up, and that might be something for future broadcasts, or even that's something where people can learn more by tuning into your channel.
Okay.
So, yeah, absolutely, man. But again, it's fascinating, and yeah, I love the idea of just like how fundamental breath is to so many practices within the esoteric mindset. So absolutely. All right, let's keep passing the talking stick around. Who would like to be able to jump in next? Just go ahead, put your hand up, and we'll pass it over to you. Pass it over to Katie. So, Katie, again, I'm not going to prompt this. Whatever you feel called to share in this moment, please, by all means, go for it, Katie.
Thanks. Yeah, that's interesting talking about the breath, and something you just mentioned, Campton, about focusing the breath. That really caught my attention. Like, I'd been paying attention, but that like sparked something in my mind, because um, I had gotten into breath work and various forms of it as like highly competitive athlete. And as a runner, your breath is one of the most important assets you have when you're running. um, so I started experimenting when I would be running really fast. If I was starting to feel a cramp in some specific muscle, I would consciously breathe the breath to that specific muscle, and I would notice it start to feel better, and I could just continue running without really having to break stride or anything. And so I was curious if you could explain a little bit more, Campton, about what you just said about focusing breath and something about light and synapses, because I would love to know a little bit more about how it's possible that, because I've noticed this in other experiences too, just like doing yoga. It's like, and you'll hear yoga instructors say like, breathe that breath down into the base of the spine, or breathe the breath into your belly, or like, even like as a woman, like I can breathe my breath like into my uterus. And like, I'm curious what what science you know about that kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah, it's all connected. And the light part was the light of our awareness, where we place our attention within the mind. You know, we can remember something, we can imagine a chair. This is moving our light of awareness with different intent. And that's still connected when we move it through physical parts of our form. You know, when we focus on an area, that's where our intent is being infused into. So when we do things like meditation, we gradually accumulate a stronger light of awareness to sense deeper into the sensations that are already all there for our understanding. And that's mindfulness. Mindfulness actually accumulates with the progressive, you know, feeling into how the breath affects the body, how the light of awareness moves around, and how we can kind of rest in the present moment without attaching our light of awareness to anything, and our world starts to open up. We actually decontract muscles. As you said, you know, you would breathe into an area and it would feel better. Well, we actually hold thoughts and emotions in the micro tension in our muscles, and that stems out again from the nervous system. So the nervous system is connected directly to the breath. And you know, I just as a final example, like intent and how it infuses into different areas of the body, you can kind of imagine feel the feeling of healing, or you can kind of imagine feel the feeling of love or an emotion or something, and infuse that into the light of awareness that interacts with the breath. And I think this light of awareness really is our intelligence. It's our, in the yogic literature they call it the chitta, you know, the consciousness behind the active story of the ego that's witnessing everything going on. And once that starts to wake up, you know, that's the mental clarity, that's the awakening and whatnot. So it all links back to the breath.
Awesome. Thank you.
Explain about that a little bit more.
Yeah, Katie, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for explaining.
Sure.
Let me think. I'm sure I could think of more to say on that topic, but
Mhm.
it's so interesting the way we can focus our awareness like that. And um your explanation there called up for me how sometimes I'll breathe intention into certain things. Like I'll breathe deeply and I'll say I'm breathing love into my future experience. Um, and I just want to say I love how we all remind each other of our experiences and helpful things that we can do. So thank you,
I love
Campton,
that.
and thank you, Brendon, and everyone else.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Campton. Campton, was there anything else you wanted to add at the moment?
I
mean, there's
just,
always more.
you know, playing it by ear.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, we'll just kind of open it up. I know Rachel wants to jump in, and again, for, Astra, Kris, did you guys have your hands up? I just let me know. Okay. Cool. So what I was just gonna say again, just kind of like riffing off that, and again, that's kind of what we're doing. Again, this is just kind of like, you know, it's like vibe and free flow style conversation, and just even right now, it's just kind of us, like we're humans, we're talking right now, but it's kind of interesting when if you were to look at this from a higher perspective, it's like there's like the same source of water kind of like flowing through us all right now, and it's like, what does the universe want to talk about? What does the universe want to be able to become aware of within itself? Again, just kind of reminding us of that bigger picture where it's like, yeah, you got a name, but this is like all like one being talking to itself through technology, and the technology is still us too. We're in the future, boys and girls. This is pretty exciting if you ask me. But anyways,
I just wanted to jump in before Rachel said what she was going to say, just because
okay,
like,
go for it, Kris.
What I was going to say, I feel like it connects perfectly to what you're talking about, and just kind of like, you know, having this higher perspective. And like what I shared in the YouTube chat space was like, you know, like it reminded me before of something that someone brought up, you know, about like the breath. But it was like, you know, these lyrics by one of my favorite, like, you know, rap artists like Illuminati Congo. And, you know, it's like in this song, like, you know, it's like he says that you know, the air is the prayer that we all share, and everywhere is aware. And you know, it's like just this idea though that, yeah, you know, it's like truly like we all are on this, like, you know, planet Earth, and like, you know, like literally, like, you know, kind of like sharing the same, like, you know, universal breath. Like, you know, you can think about it like in that like context, and it's like such a beautiful thing, because it is like what connects us all, you know, just like water connects us all, like all of the elements, like, you know. And it's like interesting, like, that I feel like I'm like tuning into that, because I feel like, you know, I've been seeing so many synchronicities in my life just relating to like, you know, connecting to elemental energy and stuff like that, and really just kind of like, you know, really getting kind of deeper into that. And it's like such a beautiful thing to explore, and you know, it's such a powerful thing to explore and become connected with. I know that you lead, like, you know, in your morning meditations, you know, like a beautiful meditation, which is like, you know, focusing on like, you know, all the different elements. And I know that you did one meditation, yeah, where it was like walking through like the fire portal and like, you know, the water portal, like, you know, it's so cool to, like, you know, like explore those concepts, like, you know, through visualization techniques, and, you know, like, of course, through, you know, different breath work techniques too, you know, like the breath of fire. You know, it's really cool that, like, you know, they have their correspondences to these elemental energies too. So, yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Kris. And again, thank you for contributing to that. Again, like, that's, you can kind of see here like how like the magic of the discussion happens, where you can kind of see like right now it's almost as if there's like parallel realities created right here in this discussion, where like one of them we go this way, one of them we go this way, and you can kind of tell. So this is where the facilitation is important, that way, so we can just kind of like pick and choose what topic we'll cover for now. One thing I just want to mention real quick, and then we'll pass it over to Rachel, going back to the emphasis of the breath. I think there's two things I want to mention real quick. One thing is, and again, this is kind of like the process of the journey of awakening, the idea of being able to like see consciousness, see yourself within all things, and the microcosm within the macrocosm, as above so below, is literally to be able to see the breath not just as like this thing that's our lungs, but literally to see the action of our breath as like a microcosmic reflection of a macrocosmic principle. And so this literal breath of kind of like expansion, contraction, rise, fall, in, out, small, big, like this pattern exists all throughout reality, like all throughout the cosmos. Like, I mean, theoretically, if you believe in the idea that like the universe is literally like one big breath, it's like literally just like right now the universe expanding is literally like one breath of Brahma. Or, you know, this is even like the mystics will kind of talk about this. So again, it's just like this really fascinating idea that like literally when you connect with your breath on a very like, not just like on a physical level, but on like a deeply profound level, you're literally connecting with this like primordial energy. You're just like, oh, like that breath that we have within us is literally like the breath of the cosmos. It's so deep. And the other thing I was just going to say, just going off of what Katie and Campton were mentioning earlier, is that I love the idea, and this is again where I'm starting to get like even more really curious about like how advanced our bodies are and how we're still just kind of beginning to understand them. Because in a lot of ways, again, almost going back to like this video game analogy, it's like we were given like this vehicle, or, you know, this character, but we weren't necessarily given the instruction manual. And so, you know, we're having to figure it out. But now we're starting to kind of like figure out that there's all these little different moves and codes and, you know, things that we can do. And one of the things that I'm fascinated by is the idea that, you know, this is a thing that a lot of people know, like where you focus, energy goes, as you're, you know, as you like where you focus, energy flows type thing. But what I've found is that like when you focus on stuff, the breath will actually like move that focus. Like it actually kind of like pushes things almost. It's almost like a pump. Like where it's like literally like, you know, if you just kind of like imagine, like if I'm like, okay, let's just like practice right now. Imagine that there's like an energy ball at your shoulder right now, and you're going to take a deep inhale, and on the exhale, extend your arm and imagine moving that energy all the way down to like the tip of your finger. And then you breathe in again, and then you move it that way. I know that's just kind of like a very simple thing, but if you were to just kind of like play with that idea, and again, apply that to any part of the body, that's just a example off the top of my head, it's very interesting because like I think our breath literally like powers our intention. Like this is like kind of like new territory, but I think that's actually how it works. So opposed to just thinking something, if we think of something and then like breathe really intentionally, it actually like moves that energy. It like adds like a push to it. It's almost like stoking a fire type thing. You know, you like pump the fire like poof, poof, and then the fire kind of gets bigger. I think our breath has that same principle to literally kind of like, you know, and that's where you can kind of like maybe if you're just like cultivating a sense of like courage within yourself, you're like, and then on each exhale it's like whoo, and then it kind of like builds it and like kind of builds like a fire type thing. Anyways, again, this is like even just me mentioning this, some of this is just like, whoa, like I've never really thought about this. So I'm I'm kind of shifting my own paradigm just by talking about this. Drop an 1111 if your paradigms are getting shifted as well. But again, that's why we honestly, part of the reason for doing these broadcasts, tune into any of these broadcasts and you're guaranteed to like have your paradigm shifted, even if it's just a little bit. So anyways, Rachel, we'll pass it over to you. I know there was probably a couple things got introduced before you were originally going to respond, but please feel free to respond to whatever it is you feel called to share to add to the circle. Rachel, go ahead.
I have so many things to say now. I have a comment for things that Campton was talking about and things that Kris mentioned and things that you mentioned, actually. Where to begin? I guess I'd like to point out that it actually is not proven by science. They don't know where the nerve impulses actually come from that trigger us to have thoughts and actions. And there's no scientific explanation at this point in time. So kind of touching on Brendon's point about things are constantly evolving. Science is always improving. And I actually read an article recently about the belief that there actually will be no endpoint, that there's always going to be something new to be discovered, that there is no end all be all. We've discovered everything there possibly is to know about the universe. But yeah, right now there is no scientific explanation for where our nerve impulses actually come from. I guess touching on my background a little more, I study Western and Eastern medicine. I did 4 years of nursing school prior to doing graduate school for acupuncture and Oriental medicine. So one of the major things I actually wanted to mention tonight was really empowering people to think about active healing. And what I mean by that when I say active healing is take your healing into your own hands, because we are all in control of our own bodies, our own health. And Western society has taught us that when you're sick, you go to the doctor and then the doctor makes you better. But to be honest, the doctor can only do so much. We have to kind of take that back for ourselves and realize that it is about our habits, our diet, our exercise, the things that we can do every single day to help ourselves feel more balanced and better, and feel better. Like, everything has its limitations. And a great analogy that I've really fallen in love with the last couple of years is that Western medicine sees the body as a machine that needs to be fixed. Eastern medicine sees the body as a garden that needs to be tended and cared for. So I'm a firm believer in the meshing of both and integrated medicine. This actually goes back to the question of what's really important for us. And in our spiritual journey, something that really helped us along for me was realizing the mind-body-spirit connection, that you do kind of, to take it back to reality instead of just going all out into the spiritual realm of things, we do need to realize that we are all three. We are the body, the mind, and the spirit, and we do need a balance between all of those things. And kind of focusing on how to best balance out all of the aspects of ourselves. I'd like to share actually a quote that is one of my favorite quotes from the book, The Web That Has No Weaver. And it's kind of a bit of a challenging read if you're not familiar with yin and yang theory or 5-element theory. There is a good book I'll recommend. This one's really good for if you're interested in learning what Eastern medicine is all about. It's called Between Heaven and Earth. I don't have the author's name off the top of my head. I believe it's a pair of authors that wrote it. But it's great introduction to yin and yang theory and kind of all of the Eastern theories and philosophies around health and medicine. But so the quote I wanted to share was, "There is no standard or absolute. What is health in one person may be sickness in another. There is no notion of normal yin and yang, only the unique challenges and possibilities of each human life." And that's a quote from Ted Kapchuk. But basically, there's no division between being sick and being healthy, and it's all kind of an illusion. Again, like we just have the unique patterns of disharmony that exist in our lives. We're all individuals. It's not like the main thing that Western medicine, a drawback for Western medicine right now would be like labeling you as your disease. Like, for example, Campton saying like, "Oh, I have autism," or I have diabetes, I have high blood pressure. all of those things are putting this label on you that you are that disease that you have. But in reality, we all have a plethora of unique meshwork and patterns of things that we have going on in our lives that affect us individually as individuals. So we can't really look at it that way of like everyone who has diabetes is all the same in that they need the same exact treatment. The thing that I fell in love with about Eastern medicine is this saying that we have that goes, same disease, different treatment, different disease, same treatment, because it's not about the disease, it's about a pattern of disharmony that exists within each of us in our unique bodies, in our unique circumstances that we're going through in our lives. And then to touch on something I thought of when Kris was talking, actually, I was just wanted to see if anyone was familiar with the idea of the chi in the world around us, and kind of gathering that energy. And an exercise that I do to kind of, this is just really simple, just to get a feel for what that energy is like if you've never experienced it before. If you just start by rubbing your hands together and then slowly create, like you're creating a chi ball is what we call it. So it's just like you'll begin to feel, after some practice, you'll begin to actually feel the vibration of the chi between your hands in the empty space. And it's really quite powerful and wonderful. And it does take some, you kind of have to get a feel for it, get used to it. It's not going to just automatically be like, whoa, look at all that vibrating energy. Because if you have to like teach your brain that it's okay to feel that, to sense that, especially if you've been in a situation where you've never been exposed to something like that before. Oh, I had one more thing and now I'm losing it.
Was it about breath?
Oh, yes, it was. It was about a breathing technique that we do with patients in the acupuncture clinic. I am just a student right now, so don't take my word as the end all be all here. But we actually, one of my professors will have patients lay flat on their back on the massage table, or you can even practice this just on your couch or on the floor or in your bed. Just lay flat and put your hands on your abdomen. And this actually comes back to what Katie mentioned about breathing into your belly. Actually, belly breathing is a wonderfully grounding and enriching way to breathe, because it actually brings the breath all the way down into all of the lobes of your lungs. And when we breathe normally, we don't actually breathe all the way down into our full capacity of our lungs. So by belly breathing and focusing on expanding your belly as you inhale, this does take quite a bit of practice too. It's kind of funny. It feels weird at first when you first start trying to do it. But you're going to want to inhale through the nose and kind of expand your abdomen with your hands on your belly, and feel your diaphragm and everything just expanding down as far as you possibly can, and feeling your whole body filling up with your breath. And then exhaling and feeling your body contract back, like releasing all of the air out, and like pulling your abdomen back in. So yeah, I think that's everything that I wanted to say right in this moment. Also, disclaimer, I am totally, like, I think I might have mentioned this, but I feel like I might have bashed on Western medicine a little bit, but I do feel like we need an integration of all the ideas, because obviously Western medicine is really important, and modern science and everything. Oh gosh, now I'm gonna keep talking because I wanted to talk about the meridians and actually the organ systems.
That's right. Yeah. Maybe we'll segue into the meridians in a second.
Yeah, I was just thinking too, because Katie mentioned the actually, it might have been you who mentioned like the organs of the body, and how in Eastern medicine they refer to the organs kind of metaphorically, not like your physical organs, because they had never done autopsies to figure out that what organs we had, but we refer to all of the organs as the organs, but it's not your physical organs. It's more like a metaphorical sense of your organs, but at the same time is physical. It's quite complex, but everyone definitely check out Between Heaven and Earth if you're interested in learning more about the basics of what all of that's about.
Beautiful.
All right, I'm done now.
Awesome. Now you can breathe. Woo! That's perfect. Thank you, Rachel. And as you were doing that, I looked it up. I think Eric Walters is the author. Does that sound right for the Heaven and Hell? I think. Like, I don't know. I googled it and stuff like that, but I think I posted a link for it into the chat for those of you who are interested. But yeah.
Between Heaven and Earth, and I think it's a
Heaven and Earth, yeah.
husband-wife combo that wrote it.
Oh, okay. Maybe I looked up something else then. I don't know. That was a while ago. That was 10 minutes ago. I can't remember. Anyways, but yeah, no, that's great, Rachel, and definitely just listening to that hits upon, like, again, like so many key points. Even just going back to what you were originally saying, where again, you know, like we need to be responsible for our own well-being. And honestly, I think that is one of the paradigm shifts that is happening right now, is the fact that like we are starting to understand a little bit more about what this body is. And when we do that, we can actually understand more how to take care of it, how to manage it, how to balance it. So I feel like even within this broadcast, I want to be able to just kind of give an opportunity for Astra and Kris to jump in as they wish. But again, you know, like I'd love to even just be able to practice exploring a little bit more about some of the details and comprehension of like the energetic body again, you know, because I feel like that is like a big part of the awakening that's happening. And this is again what Katie was talking about, and even what we were talking about earlier, where, you know, if we're talking about the chakras and things like that, like we have like the physical organs, but yes, with each chakra, like each based on my understanding, and again, this is basically what Katie was saying, each chakra correlates to a physical organ, and the chakras, these spinning discs of energy which exist on like on an energetic plane yet are still present here, correlate to different major organs like within our body. And I wish I could, like I've had that information in front of me, but I don't have it in front of me right now. But before we even dive into that, again, just kind of like keeping things within the current frame, the current topic that we are currently on, which I guess is things that have helped us along our spiritual journey, as well as breath and etc etc etc. But anyways, so okay, so I think we'll just kind of at this point, like whoever feels that they are ready to kind of jump in, I just want to be able to make sure that everyone's not getting left out or anything. So Kris, I'm not sure if there's anything you want to jump in on, and Astra, if you're gotta go take care of some stuff and come back, that's not a problem. We'll just keep jumping around. So we'll pass it over to Campton, and we'll see where the conversation goes from there. And before we do that, I just want to be able to give a quick shout out. We actually had a new Patreon sign up during this broadcast so far. Special shout out and thank you to Serenity. So for everybody here, if you haven't already yet, please feel free to say thank you to Serenity for signing up onto the Patreon. And that currently puts us at 157 on Patreon. And again, if you guys want to be able to support on Patreon during this broadcast, please feel free, and we'll keep giving you shout outs during the broadcast. And again, signing up on the Patreon as a leading member gives you the opportunity to be able to join on air for future broadcasts like this, plus lots of other really cool stuff. And side note, within the abilities as a leading member, I'll also be able to like help assist you with conscious media creation, and even potentially helping you build your own Patreon, which is something that I'm very passionate about, because all of us have value and I want all of us to be able to help be supported, and that is something that's very powerful for the future to come. So Campton, going back to you on the topic of, I guess, like energy body or anything else, please feel free to take it from there. Go ahead, dude.
Right, and I would love to actually have to handle something really quickly. Is that okay?
Do you gotta step off and come back?
Yeah,
that's not a problem. You can go do that now. Is that what you need to do? Yeah, go do that. That's not a problem.
I think that actually works out perfectly, because Astra said that she wanted to speak before.
Oh, Astra needs to go first. Oh, sorry, I didn't see the comments. Okay, sorry, I apologize, Astra.
But I'm saying I think it works out, because like he has to go and she.
Okay, perfect. Like, yeah. Universe provides. All right, Astra, we'll pass it over to you then. Is that cool? Give me a thumbs up. All right, okay, perfect. Passing it over to Astra. Sorry, I saw the pop up for the comment, but then I didn't realize what the whole context was. Astra, over to you. Go right ahead.
Okay. All right. So first of all, I just want to say that it's really beautiful to see when Rachel was speaking, how passionate she was about everything she was speaking about. I thought it was really cool. I love when people light up when they're just in their zone talking. So I'm not knowledgeable about any of the chakras or energy field bodies. So I'm not going to speak on that. I'm just going to speak on what is personally helping me at this current time, and that's remembering to be gentle with myself every day, not hold myself to too high a standard, allow myself to make mistakes, and forgive myself, which has been one of the hardest things to do in my life. Like, it's hard for me to forgive other people, but it's even harder for me to forgive myself. So working on that. I have let me just grab it real quick. Am I allowed to show things? Like, okay. All right. So I have this like law of attraction journal I got on Etsy a couple weeks back. It's a 100-day law of attraction journal. It's about manifesting and, you know, just bringing everything into your life that you want, setting goals and everything. So that's been really helpful for me. And giving myself positive affirmations every morning, telling myself that I'm worthy, I'm wise, I'm humble, I'm caring, things like that. And having interactions with women, because that has been something that has been a no-go for me my whole life. And like I would say about 3 months ago, I just woke up one day and I felt empty. Like I need women. Like I want a sisterhood. I want, you know, a little bit of a tribe. And so I created a Facebook group called the Sister Sanctuary, and it is for like women who are on their path, who, you know, we share holistic recipes, we do tarot readings, we do numerology readings, just, you know, holding each other accountable. So that's been a really big thing in my life, is because I never had any good women role models in my life. So having that has really helped. And I'm so sorry, I'm going to have to leave you all. My baby is waking up and he requires me. But I am so glad that I got the opportunity to do this. Thank you so much, Brendon. I love this space that you hold, and I hope that I get to do this again in the future. It has been so lovely meeting all of you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you as well, Astra. And we'll include your link for your Instagram so people can connect with you there. And yeah, looking forward to being able to hang out again soon. So much love to you, to the baby. And yeah, we'll talk soon enough. All right. Take care. Bye-bye. Awesome. So for those of you looking to connect with Astra, I'm just going to post a link for that into the YouTube. But again, for any of the creators here on the broadcast, if you're on YouTube right now, if you refresh the video and then go to the YouTube info and scroll down, you'll see at the bottom it says featured leading members. That's where you can find the links for all of us on air here tonight. So beautiful conversation here. And yeah, let's keep going around. So Kris, I'll pass it over to you when you're ready. Go right ahead, dude.
Yeah, so I wanted to connect to it, like one of the things like very specifically that Rachel like said. So she said that she read like a book that was called The Web That Has No Weaver, and like, you know, like just like the whole idea of like weaving things together has always been like a really like powerful symbol in my life. Like I have like on my altar in my room, I'll get it in a second, and like I'll like show you all, like I'll hold it up, but you know it's literally called Earth Prayers, you know, like the picture, and it's literally just like, you know, all these hands that are like surrounding, you know, the planet Earth, and it's like, you know, all of these webs that are just kind of, you know, interwoven through it, and it brings me back to, and it relates to, you know, the story of, you know, Indra's web of radiant and energy, you know. And it's like I had this book that it's not in my possession anymore, but like, you know, I absorbed so much of the beautiful knowledge that it contained. It was like, you know, all about the you know, it was like it had to do with like, you know, Indra's web of like radiant energy, and it has to do with that idea that, you know, we all are really just kind of these individualized like nodes of consciousness, like, you know. And it's this whole idea, you know, of the you know, universe experiencing itself and, you know, the multiplicity of, you know, human form, you know, like really. And it's like that whole idea of like, you know, consciousness being this like, if you think about it kind of in this like formless way, like, or, you know, in, it's like, you know, like bringing like form to the formlessness really. And like, you know, like that's what we kind of all are, is like, you know, like these very dense like vessels, which are like, you know, holding like, you know, that infinite light of consciousness. And you know, like it's just so beautiful how like, you know, like we are these like expressions of that, and that we ourselves, like, you know, are constantly being a part of like, you know, the creation. Like, you know, we are both the creation and like, you know, the creator, you know, both the observed and the observer, you know, always. And it's like, you know, just like so interesting, you know, always to just like come back to this perspective that Brendon was talking about before, how like, you know, it really is like, you know, we can connect that to the breath too, you know. It's like the in and the out, the yin and the yang. Like it is this like kind of web of that is suspended upon like these polarities, like, you know. And it's like being able to see though that like we are kind of that which is in between that, you know. Like it is like finding the you know, the balance between, you know, ease and effort. Like it's finding the middle way and the middle path, and like, you know, kind of being able to expand upon and relate that to so many different things about how it's like, you know, not one thing or the other. Like, it's not good or bad, but it's like being able to hold and accommodate both perspectives, at the same time. And that's like really being able to, that is like, the 0 point field of awareness too. It's not being one or the other, but it's being able to, like see that, like, we are both simultaneously both not one or the other. And yeah, it's just such a really beautiful like thing to kind of talk about and weave together, and to notice and recognize that we all are like kind of weaving this collective dream. We're like these dream weavers, and it's so beautiful.
Awesome, well said, fellow dream weaver. So awesome, thanks, Kris. I just wanted to mention something real quick, and then we'll pass it back to Campton. Campton's here. You mentioned Idra's net, and I'm glad that you did, because it sparked something inside of me, and it reminded me, because I'm like, even throughout this entire week, I'm like, okay, we're going to talk about a lot of things, but there's one thing in particular that I wanted to be able to talk about during this broadcast: Midnight Gospel. And I don't know how many people have seen it, and we won't talk long about it because I know not everyone's seen it. Midnight Gospel is a new show. It's on Adult Swim, I think. I don't even know. But anyways, it's from the creators of, it's like from the animating team of Adventure Time, if any of you have seen that, and as well as some of the creative team. And then it's basically like Duncan Trussell, who has his own podcast, which is actually very similar to what we're doing. Like, me and Duncan have actually been like creating similar content, like going way back to like before 2012. But within one of the episodes, all the episodes, it's basically like animated stories overlapped with like discussions that are actually recordings from the podcast episodes. And there's one particular episode, and there is a mention of Idra's net. And I'm just going to say this, and then we'll pass it over to Campton, where basically it was like this idea of Idra's net is, again, like basically like imagining this like crosshatch of all of these threads. It's like this infinite crosshatch. It's this web, but they said that like it's not just the web that's important. It's the points of intersection, and it's the point of intersection, and those are the points of consciousness, and that's basically the way that they refer to it. And so within this visualization, this is where you get into the idea that like in those intersections where the webs overlap, you would have like jewels or beads. And so these jewels or beads would almost be visualized as almost like a water droplet on a spider's web, or again, almost like a metaphysical, like hyperdelic web, and you got like these like crystals on them or something like that. You can almost visualize this within your mind. And then like these like little spheres are like us. They're like consciousness. It's a very, very, very beautiful way of just being able to understand things. And it's really interesting because it's actually like an ancient, like again, like very, very ancient explanation of the universe, that is now being echoed through kind of like a quantum understanding. So again, I think it's just something to like really kind of like comprehend, even on even if you don't understand it logically, even just on this deep level of like seeing this like weaved out web, and we're these jewels on it, and each jewel, this is like the big thing, each jewel reflects all of its surrounding inside of itself. So this is where you actually get into the idea of like the holographic universe, where within each jewel is the rest of the grid, the rest of the net. This is like a very like matrix holographic concept. But yeah, it was just something really, really fascinating that I just wanted to mention. And again, just a quick shout out for everybody here: go watch Midnight Gospel when you get a chance. Like, that is your homework. It is a beautiful show. It's such a blessing that this show even exists right now, because even just like for those of us who maybe not entirely familiar with these types of discussions, for them to like, for people to just watch the show, like there's some very powerful consciousness shifting ideas, and that show's like really opening up, like collectively, like helping people open up collectively in some very powerful ways. So shout out to Duncan Trussell and the rest of the team for creating that. Campton, we'll pass it over to you. Give me a thumbs up if that's ready, and you can kind of again just jump right back into if there was something you were going to talk about way back. I think we were going to talk about like maybe like energy body chakra dynamics. Again, we may or may not get into all of that. I'll just mention, I think we're in the last quarter of the show, so we got about a half hour left, and then we're going to start wrapping it up. So Campton, passing it over to you. Go right ahead, dude.
Okay, I didn't have a topic in mind. Did you want to set me sail?
Go for it, man. Whatever you want to bring to the circle is cool. So
okay, awesome. Well, we could talk about the interwoven nature of consciousness. We could talk about what that means for our evolution. For me, one of the initial realizations that helped me become more fascinated with the spiritual journey was that there were philosophers that went over the edge. There were, you know, geniuses who thought differently to kind of understand something new about the universe. And to go there, you kind of almost have to be crazy in a way that's not like how that term is usually said, but like willing to endeavor to the darkness to realize something that's going to make you think differently from the people around you, and that could cause a lot of things. So one of the initial realizations was that we're all here aware at the same time, and we know that light travels, so there must be an extra dimension to hold that in, that everything can happen at once and we can kind of come from that. And I think it's still a discovery. I think even just that belief or philosophy or realization, you know, can't ever really be touted as the truth, because we're all still awakening, we're all still learning about the mechanics of the universe. So I just like it. I like the fact that we're a field of intelligence. I like the fact that knowledge is everything in a sense, and it's kind of weird to cognize that. Even that there's a realm of just emotions, like the experience is entirely an emotion. It's not a human separate experience, logic, you know, socializing. It just is emotion. And I'm just fascinated with different experiences of consciousness that I can willfully induce within myself. And that's through meditation. That's through, again, endeavoring into the abyss. So that's just a nugget that I got. That's what I felt I should share when you said passing me the stick. So back to you.
Awesome, thanks, man. And yeah, just riffing off that, and for anybody again at this point, just put your hand up if you Rachel, was that your hand? Was your hand up there? Was that, yeah? Okay, cool. So I'll pass it over to Rachel in a second, and then again, if anybody else, just let me know as we go. Real quick, I'll just say, you know, like one of the things that just inspires my heart related to this universe is that like the mystery is always unfolding. Like there's no limit to the discovery within this existence. It's not like you'll literally just be like wake, like, you know, you like come home one day and just be like, honey, I did it. What'd you do? Like I found, like I discovered everything that the universe ever has to offer. Like I did it. I beat the game. It's over. Game over, man. Game over. Bill Paxton. But anyways, but you know, it's literally like this idea, and I think it's almost designed this way where there's like almost like an event horizon, and as we kind of like peer towards it, it keeps unfolding a little bit beyond our limit, a little bit beyond our perception. You know, it's almost like, oh, what's that quote where it's like, it's something where it's like reach for that which is like beyond your grasp, and something. It's really inspirational. Obviously, apparently it's not, because I can't remember it. But anyways, again, you know, I think it just this idea of like this universe is ripe with mystery. And so even again, just creating the context of what we're doing here with this discussion, like maybe we've hit upon a couple things, and maybe we didn't, like, you know, the full answer wasn't really even explored here within this broadcast. But I hope just by people listening to this, I hope it sparks your curiosity. I hope it encourages you to delve a little bit further into the mystery, because I think ultimately, from my own personal experience within the spiritual journey, and something that I hold very close and dear to my heart, is this idea that what makes this journey unique is that each and every single one of us is on this path to be able to connect the dots in our own ways. And that's the beautiful thing about it, because honestly, like, we would be doing you a disservice if we were to literally just tell you everything that we knew and all the dots that we connected and all the eureka moments that we had. Like, I think it's important for us to just kind of be a mirror, and for just be able to like be that finger pointing towards the moon type thing, and then to encourage you to be able to like look a little bit further, and for you to genuinely have those eureka moments, those aha moments, those, oh my goodness, like I can see how things are starting to come together. And you know, at the end of the day, the most important understanding of reality is your understanding of reality. You know, it's like a Terrence McKenna quote from there. But yeah, again, you know, this reality is incredibly mysterious. There are aspects to it that are consistent, that we can understand, But again, just this idea that like from this place that we are evolving into, like we are peering into like this like beautiful psychedelic abyss, and in it we're like seeing ourselves peer back. It's really trippy. Like I don't know if you guys have realized this, but this life is like very trippy, psychedelic, and beautiful, and it's also very exciting. So get out there, get learning, and again, don't just, it's not just about knowledge, it's about wisdom. That's knowledge through experience. That's the most important thing. And again, I know Campton and everybody else will kind of like echo this, is that with a lot of these, you know, ideas and practices, it's not just a matter of just like having them in your head, but it's a matter of being able to like bring in the experiences yourself. So what does it feel like for you to sit with your breath and meditate? What does it feel like for you to go out there and experience synchronicity, and for you to be able to like again take part in this alchemical process of transforming lead into gold, which again is basically the awakening of the unconscious into the conscious. And that's again, you know, a big thing in itself. And I said that in one of my TikTok videos. Like you guys saw that TikTok video of like, it's like, I'm ascending, bro. I'm ascending so hard right now. And then it's like, this is the spiritual journey to ascend into 5D. But what did I say? I basically said that, you know, like this isn't just about like ascend. It's about making the unconscious conscious. And that is the journey. That is the alchemical process of turning lead to gold. That is the esoteric importance there. And then through that, it's about being able to expand our awareness into what we can consider a 5D consciousness, but then integrating it into this 3D experience, and then being able to discover more of ourselves and help others along the way. And that is, again, I just going back to almost like the beginning of this broadcast, we are here to be able to help others, to fill our cup, and then to share the overflow. And yeah, for all of us who are going through this journey, like just know that like you are loved, the universe supports you. Keep showing up, keep staying curious, keep connecting with the team, and we'll keep walking this path together. So it's like Fellowship of the Ring style or something like that. So anyways, all right, Rachel, I'll pass it over to you. Please feel free to add in anything that's off the top of your head or anything that might have inspired just within the last moments. Passing it to you, Rachel. Go ahead.
All right, I have comments for things that you mentioned, and then also what Campton mentioned about the emotions. I guess first I'd like to say I don't think the game's ever over. I think we always are leveling up, always, always. For me personally, I think it's really important to stay mindful of the fact that nobody is ever a master. Even people who are masters, who have spent lifetimes learning, still have more to learn. This is something also that was brought to my attention by studying medicine. Um, Everything that is involved in Chinese medicine was cultivated over 2,000 years. This is 2,000 years of knowledge that no one could ever possibly learn in a single lifetime. It's not possible. There's so much knowledge out there for us to take in, and there will always be more knowledge for us to take in and new ways for us to reframe our perspective of things. It's constantly changing. And one of my main big callings that I've realized recently is to help people realize the importance of presence and just being present. And that also ties into a lot of what you were saying, that um, it is really important to be aware of where we are now, and not be so focused on where we've been and where we're going. I'm sure many of you have probably heard of the idea that when you're depressed, it's because you're thinking a lot about what's happened in the past, and you're really focusing on a lot of, again, focusing your energy on things that have already happened. So it's causing you to feel this sadness about whether it's about things you wish you had done, or things that you didn't, like, shouldn't have done, or wanting to do things differently, leading to feelings of sadness, and obviously like all the chemical aspects of things too. And then again, anxiety having a lot to do with focusing so much on the future and what's coming, and again, chemically as well. But it does have this correlation with what you're focusing your energy on is kind of what you're creating in your body and for yourself. And then to touch on what Campton mentions about the emotions, is that this kind of, now I'm going to bring up tarot reading too, because for me, a lot of my experiences with being involved in group readings and tarot readings has been an emotional component, and realizing that we all have different experiences and different things that have happened to us. But when we get a group reading, we can all find ways to relate to the cards and things that are coming up, and the insights will, the emotions, the feelings are the same regardless of the actual experiences that we've had. We still can feel those same emotions and that connection of whether it be grief or fear, anxiety, and even placing those words and those labels on the emotions. I feel like isn't even, sometimes words aren't even good enough to describe your emotions. It's just this deep feeling that you get of knowing and intuition. And um, that's one of the beautiful things too. I think for any of you who have never experienced tarot cards or are new to learning what tarot cards are all about, I think it's important to realize that it's not a fortune teller. It's not gonna just like tell you your future. It's about being present and realizing what you need to know in this moment, insights that are going to help you kind of work through the puzzle and cultivate yourself further and further, and just being aware of what you need to be aware of in the present moment, and not so much a prediction of what your future is going to look like necessarily. And I think that's all I have to say for now.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. And again, even just there, it's just like, and now I want to talk about tarot. So it's like, but again, you know, like that's honestly part of the intention behind doing this broadcast and doing these circles is, again, to see that like every single topic is kind of interconnected, you know, like that's kind of the experiment. Yeah, let's just like start talking about like meditation, and then we're talking about tarot, now we're talking about Idris, and now we're talking about psychedelics, and you know, it's because it's the human experience, right? Like we are the common nexus, we are the common thread that interconnects all of these experiences. So with that said, we're going to get close to wrapping up the broadcast in the next little bit. Obviously there's been a lot that's been discussed during today's synergy circle, and again, I just want to be able to remind people that if you've enjoyed this, then yeah, be sure to tune in for future ones. I'm gonna decide, I'm gonna like meditate a little bit on this, but I think next week we literally are just gonna do like this style of format again, because I feel that, again, this is just something that's incredibly valuable for us as community, and then we'll have a few other people in, even some new faces, and again, at that point we'll just kind of show up as a team, and we'll just kind of be here, and we'll just be like, what does consciousness want to talk about? What does it want to be able to bring to the circle? How can we assist? How can we share? How can we learn? And again, you know, I really appreciate it really honestly like warms my heart to see this happening in this broadcast with this style of format, and even to have this many people tune in live. Like we've had like on average about like 30-ish people tune in live, which is beautiful, which is really great. Like that maybe that doesn't sound like a lot, but that's actually a lot, all things considered. And even for those of you who are going to be tuned into the future and just, you know, visualize like a room of like 40 of us in a room, that's a lot of people. And yeah, to just kind of, you know, right now with everything that's kind of happening in the world and stuff, there's a part of me that wants to be able to like have the physical paradigm shift meetings, which would be this, you know, which would be us sitting in a yoga studio, and I'd be talking to my physical friends and everything like that. But having this is actually, you know, equally satisfying in its own way, to be able to have this digital space. So I want everyone to just kind of reflect on just kind of like the value of this for themselves, because I hope that by doing this broadcast, it just kind of like nurtures that part of you. It nurtures that part of your heart that's just like, beautiful, like-minded, psychedelic people. Yes, I want more of that in my life. And so thank you, everyone here on air and in the comments and in the future, for being a part of that, for being a part of that experience for us as a team. And again, what we're creating here as a team, I think is setting a very, very powerful and beautiful example for the wider community. So tell your friends, let's get more people tuned in. And again, I think this is just going to be something that's going to continue to grow. So thank you again, everyone. So with that said, somebody put their hand up if they want to jump in with anything in the next moment. Okay, I'll pass it over to Kris in a second. So things that we didn't really touch upon that I wanted to be able to like touch upon, at least in some degree. I really do encourage people to be able to like check out more about like the chakra system if they're interested. One of the things, I'll explain it here because this is something that I explained during like our Monday to Friday meditations, which again, for everybody here, if you're enjoying this, I would love for you to join in for our Monday to Friday team meditations at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we do a chakra practice there. But just for the purpose of like sharing and educating, one of the ways that I've explained the chakras is basically be able to like think of the chakras as these like portals of energy that literally receive information from beyond the present moment, both from the past and from the future. So in the same way that an eyeball literally like receives light, it receives information, it's almost like these chakras are kind of like similar to eyeballs, but they're like energetic eyeballs. And so we would literally receive like information, you can almost think of it as like data through our chakras, and then as we become aware, we'll start to realize like how this kind of like turns into our behavior, and also like what we receive through like it will actually show up within our actions and our experiences of things like intuition and things like inspiration and things like visions and clarity and insight and things like that, or even just kind of like a deep understanding of what our body needs in those different moments. And then each chakra kind of like correlates with the different parts of our body and everything like that. So again, I'm not going to get too into it here, but for those of you who are interested, please feel free to tune into our Monday to Friday meditations at 10 a.m. and you can learn more about it there. But I do feel that, again, it is a topic that I just encourage people to look into a little bit more. And in focusing your attention there, you're also, again, learning a little bit more about your physical body and your energetic body, and you're learning to integrate it, and you're learning to become aware of it, and you're also learning to be able to understand its needs and how to be able to balance things and adjust things, and ultimately work towards being able to, again, make the unconscious conscious, continue to level up, and continue to show up to be able to help, you know, fulfill your dreams and assist others in doing the same. So we'll pass it over to Kris, and then again, I think we'll probably have a chance to go around even just one more time with everybody here. And even if you guys just want to add in any sort of like closing thoughts of gratitude or just comments that you want to leave with the community, we'll do that, and then we'll close it off with just a short meditation at the end to conclude the circle. So Kris, I'll pass it over to you. Go right ahead, dude.
Yeah, so I just wanted to start. I wanted to start honestly by like, just like, because you reminded me, like, just of how truly grateful I am, like, for this deeply nourishing and like, nurturing like space, like, like that this is providing, like, like just kind of like having, it's kind of like a spiritual sounding board, like, but one that's like a positive sounding board. Like sometimes I feel like we can find, I know that within my family, it's like sometimes I'll like be trying to share a bunch of these concepts and stuff like that, and it's just not resonating for one reason or another. And, it's like I'm like expecting or looking for a different reaction instead of like, like sharing it with like people who care, like in a very real way, or, like people who can relate, like, like to those ideas and stuff like that. So then when we bounce ideas off, like, we get like, like this conversation that does like, like fractal off and like, spiral into a million different directions. Like, that's like the definition of like, kind of like a 5D conversation, as opposed to like, more of just like a 3D conversation where it's just like, like it doesn't it's not so expansive, like, like in its scope and like, the things that it touches upon, and, like the things that it can enter into. And it's just because of like, like the consciousness that's the consciousnesses that are interacting in that. I feel like, it's kind of like one is open to and is seeing a lot more of these connections, and like, is able to just like share in that space of kind of awareness and stuff like that. So it's like a really beautiful thing. And so the one thing I wanted just to like touch upon, like like a little bit, is like, is like the fact that like, like, and is why this is like, I feel like also is one of the reasons why this is so deeply nourishing for me too, is because like it allows me to just kind of like, pull a lot of these different connections together, and to be able to open up and like, practice, like you were talking about, like, sharing this information and being able to communicate in like a clearer, more concise way. And yeah, the one thing I wanted to touch upon was just kind of like the idea of like me and my one friend Kiera, like we always, whenever like I like hang up with a in a conversation with her, like we always like say like, like peace deep diver, like, like in like response to, I don't know if you know like that guy Ralph Smart, like, Infinite Waters, like his shout out to like Ralph Smart, Infinite Waters, because like I don't know, one of the things that he says all the time, like, that just in all of his videos is just like, peace deep divers, like diving deep into all this information. And it's like truly like, like it's like there are so many levels to like, um like, like this field of awareness, and being able to kind of really like dive deeper into like concepts and stuff like that, like, is in a very literal way, like, kind of diving deeper into you know, not just seeing things on the surface level of things, but, you know, seeing like the fractal nature of like, you know, everything at like a quantum, you know, like subatomic level and stuff like that. And, you know, the one thing that I'm looking at on my computer screen right now that I was just like, you know, thinking about, like, you know, when we were kind of touching upon the holographic fractal nature of like, you know, consciousness of existence itself, it's that there's this page online called fractalfield.com. Like, I encourage you all to check it out. It's like some really deep like information. Like why I'm so excited and passionate, like, you know, about like sharing this is just because it's like, so I just wanted to read the little last like snippet of information that like he says in this. So like he basically says that, you know, all concepts of sacred space, bioactive fields, the Shem, collective unconscious, communion of saints, and living plasma surviving death are specifically explained and can be created and optimized intelligently with the teachable science of ubiquitous phase conjugate dielectrics, optics, magnetics. And, you know, like, yeah, so he's basically like all talking about like phase conjugate mechanics and like, you know, like fractally embedded waves, and how like, you know, like our focus and our attention is like, you know, literally like the phi spiral and stuff. And I know I'm not like, I'm just jumping around to a bunch of different things right now, but, you know, it's just like I wanted to just to share like, you know, like kind of like a really deep level of understanding, and just kind of like relate that to like, you know, the idea of that, you know, everything kind of has so many deeper levels to it. So, you know, where we can like kind of examine something on the surface, it's like, you know, we can look at it just as like, you know, like this physical object, or we can look at it as, you know, like I'm sure in a lot of philosophy classes, many of you may be familiar with like, you know, the idea of like, you know, like that whole concept of, you know, like it's like a chair that you're looking at, or is it just like, you know, an assemblage of particles, you know, that I'm looking at. So there's just like, you know, like many different ways of perceiving, and being able to shift our perspective to perceiving more of the subtle realms allows us to be able to get in touch with our energy body, you know. So that's just to touch upon that concept, like, you know, it's being able to tune into like the little ant that's going across the leaf, or, you know, like the little like the veins that you see in the leaf. Like, it's being able to take notice of like the subtleties of our experience around us, and, you know, not just take things for granted, you know, not just be going through the motions, because like, you know, like that truly is like, you know, the antithesis of like, you know, like mindfulness, when you really think about it, is just like, you know, when we're just kind of going about our automatic existences and we're not really making things conscious. You know, breathing is an automatic unconscious action until we bring consciousness to it. So, you know, to kind of bring a lot of those concepts together, you know, it's bringing consciousness to the breath. You know, it's bringing that the chitta that you were talking about, or chitta, like Campton. You know, it's bringing like, you know, consciousness, you know, breathing consciousness, you know, breathing conscious awareness, and being conscious awareness. So yeah, that's kind of what I had to share. And I won't share too much more in the next little portion, because I know that I just shared a lot then. So I just wanted to express my gratitude to all of you guys for all that you got to share now. And like, you know, you guys are all so beautiful, and, you know, I hope that I want you to all to know that like, you know, I see all of you for all that you are, like, you know, shining so bright, you know, everyone who's been a part of this broadcast, including, you know, Brendon, for facilitating this beautiful space. So thank you so much.
Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you, Kris, from the heart. Really appreciate it. And absolutely, and even just saying that, it just really, again, just brought some really cool concepts to my mind. And I'll just say this quick, and then someone raised their hand for me to pass it to them next, and I'll do that in a second. Again, you know, I think going back to, you know, like, what is this spiritual journey about? I kind of briefly mentioned this, but I use the phrase sight beyond sight. And this is kind of like, there's like a longer version of this phrase, and it's like sight beyond sight, inner vision, sight beyond sight, inner vision. And so this was a phrase that was like spoken by a guy named Burning Dan, and no one here probably, I'd be very surprised if anybody knows him. He passed away back in like 2010. He's actually the brother of Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who's like from Inception, who some of you would know. Which is just kind of like a side little information there. But I remember seeing like one of his videos way back in the day, and just that phrase, like sight beyond sight, inner vision, and it really just struck a chord with me, and I just kind of felt called to share that. But I feel like, again, this spiritual journey is about being able to kind of like learn how to see things in new ways. You know, I think that is kind of like a testament of where people might be at within their spiritual journey. You could take two people and you could stand them in front of a tree, and you could ask them and be like, what do you see? Like, what is this? You know, and then you could be like, one person be like, well, I see a tree. Okay, yeah, it's brown, it's got leaves, makes oxygen, there's a bird nest in it. Cool. I like, you know, like, what do you want from me type thing. But then if you were to like ask someone else who's maybe, you know, like really just like kind of like at a different point within their journey and everything like that. And again, this isn't like a one's right, one's wrong. It's just kind of observing that there is like this natural part within all of our spiritual journeys where we just begin to see things differently. And this is like literally like the phrase paradigm shift, the paradigm, the way we see things, to shift it. And if you were to ask someone else and be like, what do you see in that tree? And they'd be like, oh, like I see it as like a reflection of myself. I see it as a map of the universe, as above, so below. I see the roots that I cannot see. And if I get closer, I can see the textures in it. I can see it's a home for beings. It in itself is like a planet for all of these little microorganisms. It brings like, it creates life, and like I am that life. And it's like the veins in my arms, and it's like, it has like an aura to it. You know, you could go on and on and on and on about what this tree actually is. And honestly, for anybody here who's maybe like newish to the spiritual journey, like I highly encourage you to literally just, you know, spend time in nature, spend time like sitting with trees and just like asking them and be like, what do you have to teach me? And the tree will teach you a lot of things. And the other thing with the tree that really was a kicker for me is like, if you take the model of a tree, so you got like this trunk and then branches up and then roots below, and then if you like turn that sideways, suddenly that becomes like a theoretical model for like time and like multiple dimensions, where it's like the trunk is like the now, the present moment, and then the roots kind of go one way and the futures kind of branch the other way, but then it kind of like crystallizes into this moment. Like it's a very like it's just an interesting way of just kind of like thinking that right here in front of us we have these trees, but it's like, what if they were actually a map of like how reality unfolds? And then suddenly, like, again, for me, I was like, whoa, this is starting to make sense. So again, you know, I think it's important for us, as Kris was saying, to be able to start looking at the subtleties, to start looking at the things that we might commonly look past. And I think this same thing applies, and I'll just say this and then I'll pass it. And if somebody can just raise their hand so I know who I'm passing it to next. This same concept applies when we're looking at each other. And I think we need to get, like, that's actually something we can kind of consciously bring intention to. When you see someone, what do you see? And even though you might not be able to like literally know every single thing about a person, can you see the subtleties of them? If a person's like, you know, like getting frustrated about something, do you just see them on the surface level and you're like, oh, they're frustrated, they're a jerk? Or do you see the subtleties and you're just like, oh, like that person is, you know, they need some love. Like there's something there. There's something hurting. There's something that needs attention. There is a message, going back to the idea that where there is pain, there is a message. There's a message. And so it's just being able to, again, kind of like really see things through this lens of compassion. And one of the things that I'll just say that, and then I'll pass it over to whoever wants to take the talking stick next. There's a very beautiful phrase, and it's basically like the spiritual journey is about being able to clean the dust off the lens of our heart. And so it's almost as if like the heart is like kind of like a camera lens or something like that. But over time, just by circumstance, by society, by conditioning, by programming, it builds up with like mud and dust, and it kind of changes the way we see things, and it changes the way we receive things. And so over time, as we kind of like connect with nature, connect with ourselves, engage in conversations, read books, listen to podcasts, go through experiences, see ourselves, we slowly clear the dust off the lens of our heart. And then as we do this, we also realize that out of that heart is where our light shines. And so this is a very powerful idea that I'll just leave people with. I believe firmly within my heart that every single being here on earth shines the exact same light. Like we shine the exact same light, and we shine the exact same amount of light. There is no single person who is brighter or dimmer than anyone else. The only difference is based on the dust that is on the lens of their heart. So over time, as we continue to kind of clear the dust off the lens of our heart, we will continue to kind of like shine this light, and it will invite others to be able to do the same. And then again, this ripple effect continues. And again, we become these sacred mirrors for each other. So I hope that me just kind of like phrasing that gives you a little bit of direction to make that a part of your spiritual journey, to be able to intentionally clear the dust off the lens of your heart, whatever that means to you. So give me a hand up for whoever wants to go next, and I'll pass it over to you. And again, even just kind of closing thoughts, anything else you want to bring in gratitude, and we'll get close to wrapping it up. Rachel, I'll pass it over to you. Go right ahead.
I was actually just thinking now is a perfect time to mention some meridian stuff, since you were talking about the intricacies and details of the trees and the veins in your arms. Just briefly kind of mention some stuff about that. I guess for those of you who aren't familiar with the meridians, it's this idea that we have these energetic pathways running through our entire body, all over our body, every part. And that's actually what acupuncture is based on, is the idea that you're taking certain points along the body that are associated with different organs, different organ systems, and some that are not even associated with a particular organ. And by inserting the needles into those points, you're kind of asking the energy to shift and redirect in whatever way it needs, whether it be clearing out stagnation in your chi and blood. A big foundation for Chinese medicine is the idea of patterns of disharmony, and a lot of them have to do with stagnation of chi and blood, and dampness in the body, which a lot of us with our diets are constantly taking in a lot of dampness. So I just briefly wanted to mention a couple acupuncture points that you can use as acupressure points and just massage on yourself to help with some of the really common things that a lot of people deal with. This one might be awkward, but I'm going to show you. It's this point. There's 2 points. The spleen point is on the inside here. If you just draw your hand up right under
Rachel, literally tell people where you're touching. There's going to be people just listening to the audio of this, so like tell them like on your knee ... On your
leg. So below the knee, when you feel up the bone of your shin on either side, you're going to come to this point where you kind of stop and you can't go up anymore. Kind of, probably like 4 finger breaths below the bottom of the kneecap there, and you're gonna feel these spots where your fingers just kind of get jammed up and stop. And on this side you have spleen 9 and this side stomach 36, and both of those are just really great points for balancing your digestion and bringing harmony to your spleen and stomach for digestive issues, all kinds of digestive issues. And if it's painful, it's probably because you actually need some work in those areas. It can be kind of tender, so just be gentle with yourself and realize that you are kind of asking your body to redirect your energy. There's also another point I wanted to mention that I thought of doing morning meditations, because we talk a lot about the bottoms of the feet and the power of massaging your feet. There is a point on the bottom of the foot. There's only one acupuncture point on the bottom of your foot. It's called kidney 1. It is 2/3 of the way below the base of your second toe and the heel. So if you just come back 2/3 of the way from the base of your second toe, between your second toe and your heel, it's the point where when you plantar flex and point your toe, it's the deepest depression there. Massaging that point is great for grounding. The kidney is actually in Chinese medicine considered to be the basically house of all of our essence, and our prenatal essence, and basically makes up a lot of our energy and who we are and how we come into this world. The kidney is a lot to do with just kind of all of our reserves of essence. So the kidney 1 point is on the bottom of the foot. And I think that's really, really intentional, actually, because it is just about descending your energy down and grounding down to the bottoms of your feet. And then just one more point I wanted to mention. Okay, maybe 2 more. They're both on the hands, but this one is when you make a loose fist where your middle finger lands. It's called pericardium 8, tied in a lot with the heart. And that one is great for apprehension and stress. And I mean, some of you might already massage this area just kind of instinctively as a place of releasing anxiety and tension. It's a really great spot. There's another spot on the other side here, large intestine 4, which is also really great for just calming, feeling calmer and more relaxed and present and at peace. It's good for headaches too. I will also mention, if you are pregnant, do not put pressure on these points, because some of them do have a lot of chi moving ability and could cause or induce labor. So anyone who's pregnant, don't start massaging these points really vigorously, or definitely check with a professional before you start doing that kind of therapy for yourself, just in case. And then the last point I wanted to mention is heart 4, which is about 1.5 thumb widths below your pinky, right on the bone right below here on your wrist. You'll feel a little cleft there, and that's heart. Heart 4. Sorry, losing track of where I'm at. But yeah, that's heart 4, and it's great for overthinking and excess worry. And just kind of massaging that spot just below your pinky, or in line with your pinky, about 2 fingers below the wrist crease. Yeah, and that was kind of my closing remarks. I guess I'd like to just say thank you so much. I'm so blessed to be here today, and I look forward to doing more of this. And thank you, everyone. And the light in me sees the light in you. The rainbow in me sees the rainbow in you. To everyone who's watching, and everyone who's listening, and everyone who's in this space now here.
Beautiful. Awesome. Rachel, thank you so much. And again, just as we're getting close to the end of the broadcast, if people have any questions about what you were just talking about, are you okay with them reaching out to you on Instagram? Perfect. All right. Okay. So again, for those of you connecting, for those of you, so Rachel said yes. For those of you looking to connect, feel free to add Rachel on Instagram at Rache_cakes, and that's RACHE_cakes. And and what's your TikTok? Is your TikTok?
It's the same.
It's the same. Okay.
Most of my content, it's kind of like my personal accounts, and I don't really have a lot of really like cool motivational or like anything to do with kind of what I've been talking about. I hope to post more about that kind of stuff. A lot of my classmates do a lot of posts about that kind of stuff. I could always provide resources for people for better spots than my social media. I feel like I'm not the best right now, but I'm working on it. I'm getting there. So
that's, hey, you're in the right spot, right? So awesome. Perfect. All right. Well, Rachel, thank you again. And again, just sharing some of the practical tips and insight and wisdom there. Again, there's so much of this body that, again, I think if we were to just be fully aware every single day, we would just be like, oh man, we're just helping take care of ourselves in ways we never thought possible. So beautiful. All right, Rachel, thank you again. And again, we're going to get close to just passing the talking stick around. I just wanted to mention one thing, because I forgot to mention this earlier. If you're if people are tuned into this broadcast live or in the future, if you guys want to help share this broadcast with other people, obviously sharing the YouTube link or directly sending people the link with a personal invite is always appreciated. Another thing I would encourage you to do is even like record like a little 15-second video of you watching this, if you're watching this on your laptop, and then post it to your Instagram, and then tag me in the post and tell people to click the link in my bio. That way some more people can tune in. And so for everybody here, I would invite you to invite one person, just to be able to tune in to what it is that we are doing here as a team. And yeah, I'm looking forward. Again, you can tell a lot of stuff. It's just like, oh, like I want to go deeper. I want to explore deeper. And I'm sure some of it we will explore even just through the team chat beyond this broadcast. So reminder for everybody here, if you want to be able to connect further, be sure to join our Discord server, our team chat. Link for that is in the YouTube info. And again, if you want to be able to join as a leading member and join on air for future broadcasts, absolutely, please feel free to do that. And yeah, let's keep moving along, and we're getting close to the end of the broadcast here. So Katie or Campton, did one of you want to go next? Katie, we'll pass it over to you. Go ahead, Katie.
Yeah, since we're nearing the end of this broadcast, I just wanted to say thanks for having me on. Really grateful to share some information from my heart and to listen to all of you also doing the same. Yeah, so I look forward to the next one and looking forward to tomorrow's morning meditation. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Sweet. Thank you again, Katie. It's always a pleasure to just have so many amazing people here. It's really fun. Beautiful. All right, so Campton, I'll pass it over to you, dude, and you can kind of get close to wrapping things up. So any kind of like thoughts for people to go out on, and any gratitude you want to share, go for it.
Yeah, I'm certainly grateful to be on here with you guys. You know, I appreciate the ear, I appreciate the listen, I appreciate the heartfelt, comfortable, vulnerable conversation that we've had here. It takes a great amount. It takes you got to be brave. You know, you got to be confident, and I really admire that in you guys. So thanks for having me here. I love what we've talked about. Certainly gives me a lot to think about going forward on my spiritual journey. And if I were to leave people with something, it would be that you know, I don't know who said this, but everything is figure outable. You can figure anything out. You can intend your mind towards any emotion, any distraught that you're feeling, any kind of creative concept in the world, and you will follow down that path. That's just how it works. Just if you put your mind to it, it will unfold for you. And just playing with that can give you a lifetime that is entirely worth every experiment that you go through. So, thank you, Brendon, for making this space. Thank you, everybody who's watching. I'm deeply grateful for your ear, for your time, and your spirit here with us. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you as well, Campton. And a reminder for everybody here, if you guys haven't yet, like for all of the creators that we've had on air, be sure to connect with them on their social media, either on the Instagram for those of them who have TikTok, even for those of us who have YouTube as well. You can find the information for that through YouTube, for the YouTube info. So refresh that, scroll down, click the links. And yeah, just always an honor to be able to bring people together. And again, you know, there's layers to this mythos that is kind of unfolding, and again, I want to be able to invite people to kind of like tap into that narrative, this narrative of us like coming together as a team of like superheroes, or as us coming together as like knights of the round table, however you want to call it, you know, like shaman, sages, wizards, all of us kind of like stepping in to our power. And again, you know, whoever you are, wherever you are, at whatever point you are along your journey, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up. You are here for a reason. You are here for a purpose. So continue to take whatever you have received from this broadcast and carry it with you. May it spark something inside of you. May it spark curiosity. May it bring you back to the familiarity of the home within your heart. May it help you just kind of like bring more of that inspiration into your ways in which you see the world and interact with it, and the kindness that you share with others. So it's an honor, it's a pleasure. And yeah, even just by us doing here, I know for those of us on air, like we've grown a little bit just by being here. We've deepened our roots as a team. Like I know even just for me being here, this is something for me too, where, you know, once this broadcast ends right now, like I'm just purely in flow, you know, like universe is just kind of talking through me. Yes, I'm here. Yes, I've been preparing for this moment, etc., etc. But it's always quite fascinating after this broadcast, and I'm sure for others you'll feel similar, where you kind of like step back and just be like, whoa, like did I just do that? Like did that just happen? Was that a thing? You know, and so again, you know, for all of us, I invite all of us to be able to take those moments where we can really just kind of like step back and really just, you know, kind of like be proud of who we are and what we are growing through, and be very gentle with ourselves, and again to just be able to like treat ourselves like our own beloved. And that's a very, very powerful thing, because I think in each and every single day we get to be able to meet more of ourselves, and that is kind of the gift that we are unwrapping within each present moment. Kris, I'll pass it over to you. You put your hand up, you got something you want to say real quick, and then we'll move into our closing meditation. Go ahead, Kris. Let me just unmute you. You're good.
Okay. Oh yes. I mean, I know I said before that like I was like kind of like done, but yeah, I just wanted to like, you know, like express again like, you know, my gratitude for each and every single one of you for, you know, all that you've shared. And I wanted just to share one more thing with you specifically, Rachel, like, you know, just like going along with what you were talking about, you know, something that I encourage you to kind of like look further into that could be of interest to you, like, you know, because you're so in, like, because you know you're invested within, you know, the field of acupuncture, and you know like understanding, you know, energy meridians. Like I don't know if you've like, you know, done much research into, you know, it's just like how the earth, like our own meridian system, you know, harbors this energy matrix, like, you know, like, and how that there are, you know, upon there's these certain ley lines and stuff like that, like, you know, in certain connected with certain energy centers like along the earth and everything. I just kind of want to like share that kind of macroscopic perception of like, you know, like the uh yeah, you know, like the meridian system running through the earth, and how, you know, that also connects to the idea of, these nodes of kind of, concentrated energy and stuff like that, that we can kind of relate to that idea, that along these sacred sites, these were these places where there was like super high, like, just like you know, like, magnetic energy points on Earth, along like, the Earth system and stuff like that. And it's a really cool thing to kind of, look into, because it just kind of shows, why these ancient cultures built these sites like along these certain in these certain areas and stuff like that. It was really to kind of like bring more balance and harmony to like, these places where there was high concentrations of energy and stuff like that. So what I wanted just to connect that to lastly was just that, like more information like that, like just kind of like sharing like all of these deep perspectives that I'm sharing like right now, like you guys can, like look forward to seeing me sharing more of that on the website that I'm working on developing right now, which is like, to create a space for me to be able to share a lot more of this deep information and to ground it, into realities. So, like it's something that, you can to keep like up with my Instagram. I'm gonna be like, kind of posting about like when I'm opening up that website, which will just be like, a nexus of kind of consciousness and information. Obviously, like I'm going to find a way to organize it more in like in a coherent structure. But yeah, like it's just like a space where I can, expand into a lot of these areas and talk about them more. So, I look forward to being able to share more of that with you. So yeah, thank you again for allowing me the space to talk on here right now. And, each and every single one of you, I love you.
Awesome. Sweet. Thank you, Kris. Beautiful. And again, for those of us who are tuned in, I hope by you guys just watching this broadcast that, there is a conscious creator inside each and every single one of us. Each of us has a voice that matters. Each of us has a vision that matters. We are artists by nature because we are literally like the creative force of this universe. And this creative force is like, is like an artist archetype. And whether or not you really think of yourself as an artist yet, I just want to be able to remind you that you have a voice that matters. You have a story that matters. You have hands that you can create with. You have a vision that you can bring forth. And I want to be able to encourage you, even if to use like, a bit of what we've talked about here tonight, to be able to, how could you perhaps be an ambassador for some of this like wisdom, the spiritual insight, these ideas, to be able to bring more of it into the mainstream culture, into the collective. And I think that in itself is a very powerful objective that we can kind of carry with us each and every single day. And again, this is going back to the origins of this project. That is essentially what the archetype of a shifter is. A shifter, for those of us who are here, if you're tuned into this, I invite you to identify, to use that title, that term, that label, that archetype. Being a shifter is about being able to intentionally help assist with the shift in consciousness through acts of creativity and compassion. And so it's planting the little seeds. It's the compassion, it's the conversations, it's being a mirror, it's creating art. And each and every single one of us has the potential to be able to continue the conversations that we've had tonight and continue it further with us. So what happens here in this broadcast is in itself a ripple that is creating much more waves by each and every single one of us, what we carry with us beyond this. So thank you for bringing the shift with you where you are. So with that said, we're going to wrap this up with a little bit of a closing meditation. Very simply put, it is a new moon, literally, like at this moment. The moon literally just became new, like 10 seconds ago. It just happened. Did you feel it? Can you feel it in your chakras? Maybe, I don't know. If you sit nicely and breathe, you probably could actually. But yes, it is a new moon, and I think it's very, very synchronistic indeed for us to be able to have this type of circle on a new moon. Today there was also like a lot of like other big global meditations today. I think there was a very big collective shift worldwide today. And so yeah, I just want to be able to honor the fact that what we are doing here is still intimately connected with a much bigger story that is unfolding. So let's take a moment here to conclude this broadcast, to conclude this circle, just with a little bit of mindfulness, a little bit of breath, a little bit of gratitude, and then from there we will wrap it up. And yeah, we'll be on our way. And for those of you who want to be able to connect further as well, be sure to join a little bit of the after party in the team chat as well. So, which I would encourage any of you to do. If you guys want to jump into the voice chat afterwards on the Discord server for the leading members, you guys are welcome to do that. So with that said, I invite everybody here to just get nice and comfortable, and we'll just conclude this with a little bit of meditation. So grab a drink of water if you need it. Perfect. All right. Thank you again, everyone, for being here. Just inviting you to gently straighten up your spine, relax your face, relax your shoulders, and gently begin to bring awareness to your breath. Soft, gentle inhales through the nose or the mouth, and soft, gentle exhales. And as you breathe here, just take a moment to be able to physically put your hands on your heart. And I want you to just be able to bring awareness to this breath and to be able to feel the cosmos, the universe, nature, reality in your breath. The same life force that moves throughout all beings, throughout all elements, moves, lives, dances, and laughs and learns within you. As you breathe here, just inviting yourself to really nurture that deep space within your heart that is remembering that you are the universe coming to know itself, that you are the dream awakening to itself. And so in this moment, I want you to imagine all of us in a very cute little yoga studio, maybe on a top floor of a building somewhere with nice wooden floors and brick walls and windows at the side. And I want you to look at all the faces in this circle. And some of them are going to be faces that you'll obviously be able to recognize, and some of them just allow yourself to just feel that presence of that being. And as you look around the circle, you see all the people who are tuned into this broadcast, all the people who are listening into this from the future, all the people who have been on air tonight. And I want you to look at each of their faces and look at their eyes. And as you do this on a very deep level, I want you to really look at them and to see yourself looking back, to see yourself in their eyes, to see and remind ourselves that we are literally one, experiencing itself from many different points of view, points of you. And so breathe here. Allow yourself to just be in this place of gratitude. As you look at all these faces, just thank them. Thank them for showing up. Thank them for being. Thank them for learning. Thank them for loving. Thank them for growing. Thank them for transmuting. So just take a moment, and as you do this, allow yourself to be seen as you feel the other people taking a moment here to just be able to say thank you and thank yourself in this moment. You have a lot to be proud of. And so on behalf of the universe, I just want to be able to personally thank you, because I know it hasn't always been easy, and I know at times it can feel uncertain, but I want to be able to invite and remind us of our courage deep within our hearts, of that guardian warrior spirits, of that element inside of us that will endure and outlast, that will exist on and on, the light that always shines. And so in this moment, simply breathe as we prepare to bring ourselves into the conclusion of this practice. And gently imagine yourself standing up, and everyone stands up in the circle. And then imagine all of us walking together into the center of the circle, and all of us coming together in a beautiful group hug right now. And in this moment, I want you to physically give yourself a hug, as if you choose, this is optional. Wrap your arms around you and literally just take a moment here where I want you to just kind of like feel yourself almost somewhere close to the center of this group hug. And there's like, there's like 20 of us in this group hug right now. And for those of you who have been in groups hugs like this before, you'll know what I'm about to talk about. But within this space, I want you to literally feel like the sway of this group circle. I want you to literally feel like the single rhythm and breath of this group hug. And so physically add a bit of a sway to yourself. And as you're in this sway, I want you to allow yourself to just be in this very nurturing space, which is very much just like home. It just feels like home. It's the best word to be able to explain it. And so in this moment, I want you to just be able to drop into a bit of your own silence. I'm going to stop talking. And I want you to be able to hear the words of the circle. Hear the words of the true voice, the one voice, the voice of the universe, the voice of light. Here in this moment, you are safe, you are loved, you are secured. And this voice, it has a message for you, a message of inspiration, a message for your heart, a message of kindness. As you hug yourself here, and if you want to relax your hug, you can, whatever you're comfortable with. I'm going to stop talking and just allow yourself to listen. What does this voice have to say to you in this moment to continue to inspire you? Listen. Let's take a couple more breaths here. Just be in the silence. Beautiful. And gently imagining the group hug slowly kind of releasing. We just slowly, just again, take another moment here to just individually thank people. You can even imagine going up and like individually hugging people amongst the group. Even feel free to come up and give me a hug if you choose. And I just thank you again for being here. Tell you how proud I am of you and how excited I am for what we're continuing to create. And so from here, let us continue to carry with us this gratitude, this love, this vibration, this inspiration. And know that you can return to this space at any time. Carry it with you in your hearts. Look forward to it and come back again next week. Let this moment be something that fills and charges your spiritual battery. And gently from here, we'll bring awareness back to our physical body as you bring a soft, gentle smile to your face as you wish. And some nice breaths here, and let's just do a very quick, just a nice big, like deep, like exhale sighs before we open our eyes. So deep inhale and a nice big exhale sigh. Inhale. Big exhale sigh. We'll just do one more of those, or maybe two. Inhale. And one more just for good luck. Inhale. And bring your awareness back to your physical body. You can start moving your arms, stretching your arms, wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes. And gently, when you're ready, open your eyes and return your awareness to the space around you. Beautiful. Awesome. Just take your time. Slowly bring yourself back. Get a drink of water if you need it. Wonderful. Good job, everyone. See, isn't that... We'll have to talk more about that next week. The power of like group meditation and visualization, and the idea that through meditating we can access this like shared like hyperdelic virtual space. Like we were in that room together energetically on some soul level. So with that said, we're going to get into the next moments here as we conclude the broadcast. I want to be able to invite people who are tuned in the YouTube chat. If there was a message that you heard when we went into that space where I asked you to kind of like listen, what does the universe has to say to you? Something of inspiration. If you want to share that in the chat, please feel free to do that. And if anybody here on the air, if you just want to share, if there was a message that came through to you, something from within your heart that you want to share that maybe echoes into the rest of the audience, I'll invite you. If anybody wants to raise their hand, was there something like just specific to that? Was there something that you guys want to be able to share? Rachel, I'll pass it over to you. Go ahead, Rachel. What message came through?
I just wanted to mention that the message that came through for me personally was just absolute silence this time around. And I think that it's important to realize that that is totally valid, and not necessarily hearing any particular insight, but also just the silence between the words and the insights is beautiful too. So I didn't really have anything come to me, just the silence of the universe and the beauty of just existing.
That's beautiful too. And yeah, again, you know, like sometimes like the message isn't words, you know, the message can be like a feeling, you know, it's a space. And you're right, that's a very, I appreciate you mentioning that as well. So yeah, for those of you who are just like, but I didn't hear anything, like, does the universe not love me? It loves you, and it speaks to you, and you're right, sometimes the words are the silence has its own message, its own voice. Very cool. Anybody else want to share anything? Just give me a, if you guys, yeah, Kris, go for it, Kris.
Yeah, I mean, just like, you know, to echo what you're saying, like the message that came through for me was just that, you know, you are so loved and supported, you know, beyond measure. That was the, you know, message. And it was just, you know, it's that, yeah, you know, like feeling all of your love and support, and like, you know, just knowing that I can always come back to that space of like, you know, reminding myself that like, you know, truly, like, you know, that I am so loved, and that, you know, oftentimes, like, you know, I think that we can put all of these different feelings of, that, you know, we are unworthy, or that, you know, we aren't all that and everything. And really, truly, it's like, you know, it's just our own perception. You know, like other people probably aren't thinking that. You know, like other people are probably like wishing that they could, you know, like come on the broadcast and, you know, like come and share open and be vulnerable and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just such a beautiful space, and I'm so grateful for each and every single one of you and everyone who tuned in. Yeah.
Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Kris, as well. And just taking a moment, if Campton or Katie, if you guys want to say anything, that's fine. And again, either or is fine. Just reading some of the comments here for the people based on what they heard. 1111 ascending in love to the heart. That's the username. Says, I heard it's okay to be you. You are loved. Star Soul wrote presence. Stella wrote be vulnerable. Don't be afraid. Jeff wrote, I got stop having so many expectations about how spirituality should be. Just go in. Powerful messages. Absolutely. Very beautiful as well. So again, Campton or Katie, did either of you want to, you guys are good? Okay, cool. That's cool. All right, perfect. All right, so with that said, thanking everyone so much again for being a part of this experience and co-creating it together. We are officially concluding this broadcast, so I just want to remind people that if you would like to be able to connect further, the way how to do that would be to join our team chat, our Discord server, and then if you want to be able to support on the Patreon and join as a leading member, you could join us on air for future broadcasts. You can always do that. Other ways you can support the project, you can also check out our item shop where you can find crystals, clothing, and shift buttons. Be sure to follow the social media links for more content from my Instagram, TikTok, and as well as all the other social media content from the other leading members here on air tonight. And yeah, please feel free to make sure you tell your friends. Tune in again next week, and we'll be here again Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with more mysteries of the universe to explore together as a team. And again, for those of you looking to find the MP3s, be sure to subscribe to Paradigm Shift Radio on iTunes. And so just concluding this with so much gratitude. This has been a wonderful experience. Thank you again, everyone. And for all the fellow leading members here, I just invite you to gently unmute your microphones, and let's end it off with a little bit of like a wolf howl animal noise. Everybody here, make some noise, send some love. Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you again, everyone, so much. It's been an honor. It's been a pleasure. As always, keep it shifty, and we will see you in the future. Join us in the team chat for the after party. Woo-hoo-hoo. See you there. Much love. Special thank you to Danny Leonardo, whose music is featured at the beginning and end of this broadcast. Be sure to check out more of Danny's work in the YouTube info below. Thank you, Danny.